counterattacks can be launched while ensuring the absolute safety of the command ship positioned at the core. Sitting in his seat, Dongfang tapped his fingers rhythmically on the armrest, his mind recalling the naval command knowledge imparted by Professor Arthur. At this moment, he gained a profound understanding of the old saying passed down in his country: seeing it 1,000 times is not as good as doing it once. After forming the fleet, Dongfang could even directly observe the advantages and disadvantages of the formation. No wonder his teacher had repeatedly emphasized that large-scale fleet movements in the vast universe must be conducted in formation. The saying about trusting books too much was meant for great masters who had fully grasped the content and could apply it effortlessly in practice. As Dongfang's thoughts flowed, the fleet completed its initial acceleration. Looking through the transparent observation window, the myriad of starlight stretched into bright lines as they sped away, causing his vision to blur momentarily. "Mr. Harriman, are we leaving behind any of the butterfly-shaped vessels?" Jinning's face was filled with anguish. These were all purchased with the family's hard-earned money. Each vessel was worth far beyond what ordinary life on Pegasus could imagine. 100 million Pegasus coins could ensure 5 generations lived without worry. The price of a butterfly-shaped vessel was 300 million Pegasus coins. Therefore, he felt his heart bleed at the thought of losing them. Landing on a planet would pose a challenge since the ship's size was too large. If captured, it would crash onto the planet's surface like a meteor. That's right. Not a single one left behind. Except for the life support systems and essential provisions, everything else is to be discarded. Notify all standby crew members to enter hibernation chambers to reduce energy consumption and allocate all energy to the propulsion engines. Harriman's face remained pale, almost devoid of color. Yet, he still exhibited the decisiveness, sharpness, and swift action expected of a second heir. In 10 minutes, we will cross Neptune's orbit and escape the solar system. Once we are out of the solar system, there is a concealed wormhole passage. Only by entering the wormhole will we be safe. Understood. However, sir, the pilots just reported that the ship's speed is approaching its maximum tolerable limit. Further acceleration may risk structural failure. We only have about 5 units of acceleration left. If we go faster, I understand. Maintain speed at the maximum limit and inform all personnel to remain vigilant. Although the probe screen is still empty, who can guarantee there are no pursuers behind us? Yes. Jennings saluted respectfully before returning to his station, lowering his head to get busy. A few seconds later, the hatch of the crescent-shaped spacecraft slowly opened, and thousands of butterfly-shaped vessels were ejected. Of course, they were not simply discarded. As soon as the vessels left the spacecraft, some of them ignited their engines and flew at high speed in the opposite direction of the spacecraft. Their purpose was to collide with the pursuing spacecraft. It must be said that this tactic was quite cunning. The vessels were used like large explosives. If a spacecraft were hit, the consequences would be severe. Report, Master. The enemy ship is continuing to accelerate. Based on our current flight speed, we can approach the target in 1 hour. Dongfang furrowed his brow. In 1 hour, the spacecraft from Pegasus will have already left the solar system. Why is it so slow? Activate the warp engine. We need to intercept it ahead. Harriman's plan fell through. During warp travel, the exterior of the spacecraft would be enveloped in a curved space, like a giant space bubble, completely enclosing the spacecraft and moving it into another space. At such a flight speed, it would be infinitely close to the speed of light. Given the distance between both parties, it would take less than 4 seconds. Dongfang's fleet would appear 300,000 kilometers in front of Harriman. Moreover, the butterfly-shaped vessels they ejected would not affect Dongfang at all. Master, the battleships are not equipped with warp engines. Only the main ship and the Star Fortress can achieve warp travel. Should we break formation and have the main ship and Star Fortress head to the interception point? Dongfang glanced at the holographic screen. There were a total of 43 battle fortresses, so safety was completely assured. Order the main ship and Star Fortress to enter warp travel while the battleships maintain their current speed. We'll execute a pincer attack. Understood, Master. The fleet's speed gradually slowed down, and the exhaust flames at the rear of the spacecraft extinguished one by one. Then, the main ship and the spherical fortresses scattered away from the formation. After a series of dazzling flashes, the space around the main ship and the Star Fortress became distorted. When Dongfang curiously looked outside, he noticed that the light of the stars in the universe was swirling and distorting. In less than 2 seconds, the rotation stopped, and the spacecraft transitioned from a stationary state to high-speed travel, navigating through a colorful tunnel. All the external stars and celestial bodies vanished, leaving only a brightly colored tunnel that continuously extended. This was Dongfang's first experience with warp travel, and he kept looking around, his face filled with curiosity. After entering warp travel, time lost its original meaning. Just when Dongfang was becoming dizzy from the monotonous scenery in front of him, the tunnel suddenly disappeared. The spacecraft came to a halt again, and in the next moment, the Star Fortresses appeared one after another, as if they had materialized out of thin air. filled with a sense of the fantastical. Teleportation. This was Dongfang's only thought at that moment. Master, the enemy ship will enter range in 10 seconds. Please provide your instructions. Deactivate optical stealth. All ships' main cannons begin charging. Once within range, fire immediately. By the way, just target the engines. There's no need to deliberately pursue destruction. Capture it alive. The captain of this spaceship is not an ordinary life form from a certain star. Understood. All main guns are charged and ready to fire after a 5-second countdown. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 launch. Young master, look ahead. Evasive maneuvers. Emergency evasive maneuvers. The pilot shouted loudly, his voice breaking under the strain, echoing across the bridge. Oh, my life is over. Chapter 267. Extremely relaxed when Harriman saw the beams of laser fire coming towards him, he felt a chill run through his body. Even with all his skills, in this situation, he could only await his fate. The scene of the high-energy laser piercing through the spaceship was still vivid in his mind. He had thought that with his quick reactions, he could escape and plan his next move. But he was soon struck down. At this moment, he felt utterly hopeless. Nothing mattered more than his own life. Not the airship, not the elders of the family, not the lofty status. So, with a deep sigh, he slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the final moment to arrive. Soon, the anticipated tremor came. The light before his eyelids disappeared as the spaceship shook. Although the shaking was intense, Harriman remained firmly seated, completely still. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute passed. Harriman still did not encounter the conclusion he had imagined. He slowly opened his eyes, raised his head, and looked around the bridge. Captain, all laser beams have hit the designated targets. The spaceship ahead has lost speed. But to bring it to a complete stop, we must intervene. Otherwise, it will continue forward until captured by the gravitational pull of a planet in the path. Do you want me to intercept it? Of course. Dong nodded. His purpose here was to capture the captain of this spaceship. There was no way he would let it escape. All right, Captain, the interception shield is ready. Prepare to intercept. As the somewhat mechanical voice of the spaceship's main system sounded, Dong noticed changes on the holographic screen. For battle fortresses had moved away from their original positions. The armor in front retracted into the cabin, and a thick cylindrical object extended from the gap. A faint blue beam shot out from the top of the cylinder. As the beam just exited the protective range of the energy shield, it immediately split into finer beams, resembling the flying swords described in fantasy novels. One became thousands, tens of thousands, and soon filled the entire channel. The beams shot from the 4 fortresses began to operate, intertwining and connecting above and below. It was as if an invisible pair of hands were weaving the originally parallel beams into a dense, evenly distributed net. While it may sound slow, in reality, this net was completed in just 1 second from the moment the beams were fired. By the dim light of the emergency lights, Harriman saw the crew members of the ship toppling over, and the cries of injured personnel due to the violent shaking echoed in his ears. There was Jennings, standing there like a wooden chicken. Could it be that my fate is not sealed, and there is still hope? The overwhelming joy in Harriman's heart could no longer be suppressed, and he couldn't help but grin widely. I still have a chance. Since that young man didn't kill me in one blow, he must want me to live. Moreover, the weight of the starship exceeds 200,000 tons. At such a high speed, he surely cannot stop the ship, as long as the ship leaves the solar system. I will immediately release the escape pod and distance myself from that terrifying young man. However, the life support system of the ship may not function for long. So I must throw them all out. That is their true purpose, to relieve the burden for their master. With this thought, Harriman withdrew his gaze, preparing to find the first officer and arrange for him to discard the sleep pods. Suddenly, Harriman saw a flash of light in front of him. Relying solely on his eyesight, he spotted 4 thick beams of light. In the blink of an eye, a massive web of light formed, completely blocking the ship's path. I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Harriman chuckled self-deprecatingly and sat down in despair. What is this, Mr. Harriman? Can such a thin web of light really intercept the ship? The first officer Jennings's voice came from behind, stuttering as he finished his question. Now Harriman was his only lifeline, and he sought the last glimmer of hope from him. I studied this at the academy. It's a new application of lasers by advanced civilizations. It's an intercepting laser net. Don't be fooled by its thinness. The laser beams may look fine, but their resilience and flexibility are beyond your imagination. Not just a small starship. Even if 10 more came, it could still intercept them. Jennings realized there was no point in struggling uselessly. Let us see how this gentleman plans to handle us. After Harriman weakly spoke, he fell silent, no longer responding even as Jennings yelled and cursed, shouting in despair. He simply sat quietly in his chair, watching the light net outside the window. With no difference from what Harriman had said, the crescent-shaped ship dove into the light net, creating a massive indentation. By mere observation, it seemed as though the ship could break through the intercepting net and proceed smoothly at any moment. But that seemingly fragile light net did not break. Even as the ship came to a halt, there were no signs of rupture. Jennings witnessed this scene, feeling as if all the air had been let out of him like a deflated balloon, and he collapsed behind Harriman, mumbling incessantly, "It's over, it's over, it's all over. I'm so unlucky. Why did I come to this damned blue planet? This cursed trial. Captain, the interception mission has been accomplished. The target ship is completely stationary. We can board it any time. Then send out the bionic robots and let this slippery captain come meet me." Dongfang stood up, adjusted his clothes, and slowly walked out of the bridge towards the confinement area controlling the ship. He walked slowly, seemingly intentionally reducing his pace. "Xiaoyu, how is it on your side?" "Captain, the landing has been completed and all personnel have been captured. I am preparing to conduct the interrogation as you requested." Nova quickened her pace. Due to the resistance from the combat personnel on the ship, it took her some time to take full control, which is why the capture mission was only completed now. "Xiaoyu, no rush. I've already caught that captain. We'll synchronize the interrogations to compare their answers and see if there are any lies." Dongfang smiled slightly when he saw Nova speeding up. "Maintain communication. We will start the interrogation in 1 minute." "Understood, sir." Harriman was very compliant. After the other party entered the bridge, he completely gave up resistance, doing exactly as he was told, so it didn't take long. He boarded a small aircraft of the opposing side and entered the largest ship in the fleet. "Hurry up." Due to the immense force from the personnel escorting him, Harriman stumbled forward. "All right." Harriman revealed an innocent smile. He quickened his pace again, walking deeper into the corridor. Chapter 268. Suggestions. Since Harriman boarded near the detention area, he was taken there first. "Go in." Upon hearing the voice from behind him, Harriman instinctively looked up. It was an empty room, seemingly designed that way, brightly lit and revealing every detail. He saw 2 chairs placed opposite each other in the center of the room, and a realization dawned on him. This was the interrogation room. No wonder that person didn't eliminate him. The information in his mind must be worth it. Without any hesitation, Harriman stepped into the interrogation room and sat down in the chair facing the door. He knew this was where he was supposed to sit, even though he often sat in the opposite chair. As soon as Harriman settled down, the chair beneath him changed silently. His hands, feet, and even his head were firmly bound by metallic restraints that extended from behind the chair. The space to move was less than 5 millimeters. "Sir, the target has been brought into the interrogation room. Scans show no abnormalities. Danger level is 0. You may begin the interrogation." Dongfang emitted a sound through his nose, still walking leisurely down the corridor. It seemed that resistance was futile, and to be honest, there must be various surveillance devices everywhere here. If he lied, there would definitely be dire consequences. Anyway, he was already in this situation. The Elder Council was far removed from it. With this realization, Harriman felt even more relaxed. He tried to move his limbs and found the most comfortable sitting position under the current constraints, then closed his eyes and waited quietly. Since he could not resist, he might as well accept it openly. As the second heir of a prominent family, his thinking is quite clear, and he can easily grasp the key points of the situation. He finds a glimmer of hope amidst the crisis. Having lost all his equipment, he silently begins to keep time in his mind. This is currently his only way to pass the time and adjust his mindset. Of course, it's also the only thing he can do at the moment. Long-term training has made his perception of time extremely precise. As the 5 minutes ticked by, he heard the sound of shoes touching the ground. Believing he had completed his mental adjustment, he opened his eyes. A strikingly handsome, tall young individual from the eastern region appeared before him. Dressed in a style reminiscent of the Eastern culture, he walked through the cabin door. Although the clothing looked simple, the row of buttons on the chest and the tailored fit accentuated the young man's temperament. "This outfit looks great. If I get the chance to return, I will have a tailor make me a set." Unexpectedly, he found himself relaxed enough to observe the Eastern attire. If he were familiar with the culture, he would easily recognize the outfit as a Zhongshan suit. Unfortunately, his hopes of returning to his family from the solar system were slim. As soon as the Eastern individual entered, he noticed that Harriman had just opened his eyes. Unlike Harriman, he found that the creature from Pegasus he had captured this time looked no different from the miners he had previously caught. They all appeared to be in an undeveloped state, and aside from being physically robust, they had little else to commend them, which was quite off-putting. Thankfully, the distance between the 2 chairs was not close. Otherwise, he wouldn't have even considered sitting down. "What's your name?" he asked. "You just come in and start the interrogation without even mentioning the consequences? Aren't you afraid I might lie?" Harriman was somewhat bewildered by the Eastern individual's unconventional approach. "My name is Harriman Demos." He quickly regained his composure, realizing he had nothing to hide since he was prepared for this. "I am the 74th heir of the Demos family. My main purpose for coming to this region is to complete the family trial tasks." Once he started talking, Harriman couldn't stop. He recounted everything from how he was summoned, to the family meeting, to how he encountered the Eastern individual. and how he was captured while trying to escape, presenting it all in chronological order. Of course, he intentionally concealed details about tasks like exchanging points with the S-People or capturing spaceships. This noble sir, I come here with no ill intentions. I am only here to complete the family trials. Unlike those you have eliminated, I come with goodwill and pose no threat to your region. The Eastern individual remained silent, comparing this information with what he had obtained from the earlier interrogation. Very well, it seems you are not lying. Upon hearing the Eastern individual's response, Harriman let out a slow breath. It seemed he had made the right bet. Apart from the 26 heirs participating in the trials, are there any other heirs involved? Oh, I see. I just forgot to tell you that there are a total of 75 heirs participating in the trial this time. Additionally, 49 more ships will soon enter the wormhole. Since I can't complete the trial myself, the remaining heirs shouldn't expect to fare any better. It's just the right opportunity to use this person to eliminate the remaining trial participants. At the same time, I need to ensure my own safety. Sir, I have a suggestion, though I'm not sure if I should mention it. Go ahead. The Eastern figure nodded expressionlessly. I know that with your strength, even if 200 more ships came, it would be a piece of cake for you. But have you considered that we are just a lower-ranking family in the Pegasus civilization? With extremely limited power, deploying so many ships has already consumed a considerable amount of resources. But what about the Pegasus Empire? If our family continues to face setbacks here, I believe the family will report the situation to seek support from the Empire. Although, in doing so, the Empire will take 60 of the profits. I know that if the family requests assistance, the Empire will definitely send a more powerful fleet to our location. By then, with hundreds of thousands of ships gathering in the solar system, it won't just be our home planet that is doomed, but the entire solar system. Of course, with your strength, you can come and go as you please. But what about the people of our home planet? What about our planet? What will they do? Are they just supposed to wait passively for their fate? So, I dare to suggest that I become your servant, by lying in wait. After eliminating the remaining 49 ships, I can return to the family and become an elder. This will prevent the family from reporting the situation. Additionally, I can act as your informant, promptly informing you of any movements from the Pegasus Empire. What do you think? Harriman gritted his teeth and spoke half in speculation, half in desperation. To survive, he was willing to sell anything, including his own soul. The safety of the people of our home planet has nothing to do with me. The Eastern figure remained expressionless, but his heart skipped a beat. This guy is right. If it really comes to that, what about his home? His mother planet? Can he just leave with his family and friends? No, he can't do that. This is the home of all humanity. If he loses it, it's equivalent to losing his home. If that is the case, then you can treat my words as nothing. Do as you please. Harriman was also quite straightforward. Since it wasn't he going to work, he would just give up. Chapter 269, Surrender. Xiaoyu, what is the result of the interrogation on your side? The Eastern figure didn't speak, and to Harriman, his gaze seemed distant and unfocused. So he wisely closed his mouth. There was no need to say that his recent plan had already moved this seemingly young but very determined person from the home planet. His heart began to race uncontrollably. The speculation was correct. This person is from the home planet and indeed cares about the safety of his mother star. Captain, just like the result of your recent interrogation, they are indeed here to participate in the trial. However, he spoke a bit more. In this trial, you are their biggest target. They even created a point redemption table. According to the rules, if they can capture you, they will immediately achieve ultimate victory in this trial. As Nova's voice faded, a sheet was placed in front of Dongfang. It was exactly the same as what was previously announced at the elders' meeting of the Dimoth family, identical, without any discrepancies. Oh, it seems the Dimoth family really thinks highly of themselves. A mere robotic being is only worth 1 point. Indeed, this Harriman is quite dishonest. He didn't mention any details about the trial, and it's time to teach him a lesson. Nova snorted. She had also seen the entire interrogation process of Dongfang. Naturally, she was aware of Harriman's cunning. Harriman adjusted his sitting posture once again. The feeling of being bound was quite uncomfortable. After the initial tension faded, this sensation became even more pronounced. Suddenly, he felt an itch on his back. At first, it was just a slight sensation, so he leaned back a bit, rubbing against the chair. However, that only provided momentary relief. The more he rubbed, the itchier it became, to the point he wanted to scratch it hard. Unfortunately, his hands couldn't move at all. This itch seemed to be contagious. Not only his back, but his entire body, including the soles of his feet, began to itch. Unable to endure it any longer, Harriman let out a cry. It was too itchy, incredibly itchy. It felt like 1,000 claws were scratching him, driving him to madness. Heh! Dongfang's expression remained unchanged, as if he hadn't heard Harriman's cries at all. Xiaoyu, how did you come up with this? You often tell me that we are peaceful and intelligent beings, right? So I just adopted this extremely civilized way to teach him a lesson. Haha. Can I say you did a great job? Dongfang couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Thank you for the compliment. Nova lifted her skirt with both hands, one foot in front and the other behind, slightly bending her knees to perform an elegant gesture. Wow, Nova actually, oh my. But this is a bit too adorable. Hee hee. Dongfang chuckled after looking at Nova's slightly oversized collar. Sir, please spare me. Please let me go. I am willing to serve you wholeheartedly as your humble servant. After hearing Dongfang's laughter, Harriman endured the itch all over his body and shouted with all his might. He had never felt time pass so slowly. 1 millisecond felt like a year. Therefore, he could no longer endure even a second and began to plead loudly. Xiaoyu, look at how terrible he looks. Maybe you should stop. Dongfang glanced at Harriman, whose face was streaming with tears and snot, and felt quite disgusted. All right. As Nova's words fell, a thin metal spike that had been piercing Harriman's seat immediately retracted into the chair. At the same time, Harriman felt a lightness in his body, and the itching sensation completely vanished, as if it had just been an illusion. He felt as though he had stepped from hell into heaven. All his strength was drained, leaving him slumped in his chair, motionless. Is this kid not dead? Dongfang asked, uncertainly, upon seeing Harriman's state. All vital signs are normal. He is fine, Nova replied, shaking his head. I think he will tell you everything you ask now. Harriman, let's talk about the trial. From what I understand, it's not as simple as you say, right? Dongfang's gaze shifted from the ceiling to Harriman's face. Master, I'm sorry. I was afraid you would be upset, so I hid some things. This time, Harriman dared not be clever. He recounted everything that happened at the family meeting without holding back, even detailing his father's situation clearly. Is that right? Dongfang chuckled, lightly tapping his fingers on the armrest, and fell silent for a long time. In the interrogation room, only the sound of nails tapping against the armrest echoed. Harriman felt as if each tap was a giant hammer striking his heart, threatening to break it at any moment. Cold sweat poured down his face like beads from a broken string, landing on his shoulders. Fearing he might disturb Dongfang's thoughts, he could only tightly shut his mouth, not daring to make a sound. After a long while, when Harriman felt he was about to suffocate, Dongfang spoke again. Tell me about your suggestion. I want to hear it. Yes, master, Harriman immediately responded, secretly taking a breath, finally releasing some of the pent-up pressure in his chest. I didn't exaggerate on purpose. The Demos family really doesn't amount to much in the Pegasus Empire. Among the numerous families, they can only rank around 50th. There are many more powerful families, not to mention the empires with vast military power. The reason for this trial is the long-standing arrogance of the Elder Council. They subjectively believe that Blue Star is just a small first-level civilization. The only threat comes from your spherical spaceship. As long as there are enough ships, they believe they can easily defeat your warships. However, if you easily defeat all the heirs without any news coming back, those old geezers will definitely notice something is off and report it to the Empire immediately. Losing dozens of heirs in one go means the Empire will no longer be bound by cosmic laws and can fully mobilize to eliminate civilizations threatening its safety. Although your fleet is powerful, there is an old saying, many ants can kill an elephant. If hundreds of thousands of ships gather in the solar system, can you withstand it? By then, the entire solar system will be in ruins, devoid of life. My suggestion is to avoid such situations as much as possible. First, stabilize the Demos family while you continue to develop quietly. Once no one poses a threat to you, you can boldly make your voice heard and lead Blue Star to become a member of the Cosmic Alliance. Chapter 270, Shadow Guardian. Of course, that is a matter for the future. The urgent task at hand is to handle the Demos family's trial properly and navigate through this development and danger period smoothly. Harriman paused, having said everything he wanted to express. He wasn't sure if he could truly move Dongfang this time. Then what do you want me to do? Just randomly grab an heir, right? Master, I have already regarded you as my master in my heart. First, I am the second heir of the Demos family. And while that status means nothing in your presence, it is a genuine noble status within the family. Therefore, my words carry more weight and recognition within the family. Second, even if I cannot gain the family's approval, my father can assist me. Third, I know every heir of the Demos family well, which allows me to better strategize for you, ensuring everything goes seamlessly without any unexpected issues. At this moment, Harriman finally relaxed and presented himself as a proper family heir. I have 3 strategies to prove my value to you. First, immediately set up defenses near the wormhole, as ships are at their weakest when just exiting the wormhole. With everyone in stasis, you can take control of the ship without any bloodshed. Second, I can step forward and tell everyone that I have successfully passed the trial and captured your spacecraft, which will alleviate their doubts and prompt them to obediently return to Pegasus. At the same time, as the first heir, I can redirect the Elder's focus away from the solar system and towards Blue Star, completely eliminating threats and hidden dangers. Third, I can act as your informant, obtaining real-time information on the Pegasus Empire's movements, allowing you to be well prepared for any dangers. Do you think this is feasible? By the way, There is something else I need to report to you that requires your prompt attention. Harriman suddenly recalled the Shadow Guardians he had requested from his father when he left. Although he knew that the individual strength of the Shadow Guardians was formidable, he understood even more that in front of Dongfang, those strengths were insignificant. He feared that if the Shadow Guardians acted and angered Dongfang, he would become the best target for venting frustrations. Therefore, he hurriedly reported the relevant situation. Are you referring to them? Dongfang waved his hand, and a holographic display screen suddenly appeared in the interrogation room. This is definitely a technology that can only be utilized by civilizations above level 3. Harriman's pupils constricted, and he silently praised himself for not trying any tricks. Otherwise, at this moment, all his attention was captivated by the images displayed in the holographic projection. Due to the 3D holographic nature, Harriman even experienced a sense of immersion. In the pitch-black universe, a ship resembling a water droplet, painted entirely in dark colors, quietly approached its starship-level counterpart. A faint light flashed by, and several shadows landed on top of the ship before disappearing. Moments later, the light flickered again, and the shadows rushed into the droplet-shaped vessel. Clearly, they had discovered that the ship was already deserted. This situation seemed to leave the crew inside the ship somewhat bewildered. The vessel remained motionless for a while before it began to move. Specifically, it started to orbit around its own center, slowly expanding its search area. It was evident that they were conducting a search, likely hoping to find some clues around the ship. Little did they know, just under 2,000 kilometers above them, a fleet lay quietly anchored in the starry sky, indistinguishable from the surrounding environment thanks to its optical stealth system. 1 minute, 5 minutes passed, and the droplet-shaped ship flew around aimlessly, like a headless fly. Shadow One, what should we do? The young master has mysteriously vanished. Stop wasting time searching. This area is so open, it's clear at a glance. The shadow known as Shadow One remained silent, continuously tapping on the controls of the ship's detection instruments, hoping to discover some trace. In truth, he had no idea what to do. They had found the ship, but where the people were or what had happened, he had no information at all. Damn, this ship is flying too slowly. If only it had been quicker. Continuing to waste time like this is indeed pointless. Shadow One stopped his actions, gritted his teeth, and said, now that we have no leads, let us return to the family immediately and report to the master. We need more personnel to search. The droplet-shaped ship immediately halted its flight and adjusted its posture, speeding off in the opposite direction. Master, they must be going back to report. We can't let them get away. Harriman spoke up, eager to prove himself and prevent any backlash from the Eastern forces. Just watch. Eastern glanced at Harriman, realizing that this kid was determined to stick with him. However, it couldn't be ruled out that he merely wanted to stabilize his position and escape back to his home planet. Overthinking. As soon as Eastern's words fell, Harriman saw the droplet-shaped ship suddenly shift from high-speed flight to a complete standstill, as if time had been pressed on pause. The flames from the rear engine flared long, yet it still couldn't move an inch. In the next moment, a beam of light enveloped the black droplet, and the ship was pulled into a spherical fortress. All right, the first one has been dealt with. Eastern clapped his hands and smiled at the bewildered Harriman. My great master, your power exceeds my imagination. Is that so? Eastern snorted with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, closing his mouth and falling silent. Xiaoyu, arrange the warships near the wormhole immediately. As soon as any spacecraft enters the solar system, take control right away. Understood, Captain. I've already made arrangements as soon as Harriman mentioned it. You can rest assured. Nova is no longer the same as before. Now that she has her own thoughts, she can judge events independently and make arrangements on her own. Oh, Xiaoyu has grown quickly. Of course. This way I can assist you better. After ending the communication, Dongfang turned his gaze to the obedient-looking Harriman. I agree with your suggestion. However, to ensure that you won't betray me, I need to make a few modifications. I trust you won't have any objections. Of course, I fully agree. But Master, may I ask what kind of modifications you need to make on me? Although Harriman was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but ask when Dongfang actually said it. Have you heard of biological chips? Biological chips? That seems to be a new type of chip used by advanced civilizations. Just as Harriman recalled some related knowledge about the chip, everything went dark, and he lost consciousness. Chapter 271. Chip implantation. After Harriman collapsed, his body immediately lost support, becoming a limp mass on the chair like a catfish. How disgusting, Captain. Nova's voice came through the intercom in the interrogation room. Although communication had ended, she was still paying close attention to Dongfang. However, due to Harriman's disgusting posture, she couldn't help but voice her reaction. Haha, Xiaoyu, you're really overreacting. Anyone who has been anesthetized like that looks the same. Just in time. Let us implant the biological chip in him. It's difficult to control someone with such a lively mind otherwise. Understood, Captain. Control for biological chip number 1 is ready. Implantation will be completed in 1 minute. Just as Nova's voice fell, the chair beneath Harriman began to change. First, it slowly flattened, then the legs retracted. The armrests and backrest merged into one. At a glance, the chair had transformed into a comfortable single bed. Next, the area where Harriman's head touched the backrest quickly retracted, revealing a hole that fit his head perfectly, as if it was custom-made for him. Stop with the fancy stuff, just implant it right away. Everyone knows that there's also a biological chip in Dongfang's brain, but he was anesthetized during the implantation, so he had no idea how the chip was actually implanted in the brain. This sparked his strong curiosity, but Nova's series of operations made him a bit impatient, prompting him to speak up. "Oh, we need to prepare first. Please wait a moment." Although Nova said this, she couldn't ignore Dongfang's request. As soon as she finished speaking, a large opening rapidly appeared in the floor beside the single bed. A metal plate sprang out from within. That's right, it popped out. It seems that Nova is indeed speeding up the process. After the metal plate popped out, it bent inward, and before it stabilized, a beam of light immediately shot out from the center of the plate. The biological holographic scanner, which the doctors from the local medical facility jokingly referred to as a super X-ray device. As the beam illuminated Harriman's body, his internal structure was immediately displayed on the surface in a holographic image. The heart, liver, intestines, stomach, including the beating heart, were all clearly visible. Of course, his brain was also displayed. "Nova, this guy's heart is actually right in the middle. Look at those huge lungs. Wow, his stomach is this big too. It's almost like a cow's stomach." Dongfang was somewhat shocked. The body structure of the intelligent beings from Pegasus seemed quite different from that of humans. It looked more like the internal organs of an animal. You didn't see wrong. Their stomachs are indeed somewhat similar to those of cattle from the Blue Planet. However, cows have 4 stomachs, while they only have 3. But functionally, they are quite similar, which is also one reason for their tall stature and immense strength. And have you noticed? Their blood is green. It contains a large number of chloroplasts, and if they don't get enough energy from external sources, they can supplement it by sunbathing. Of course, water is essential as well. Also, look at his skin. It has evolved a substance similar to scales that can effectively reduce physical damage. To facilitate communication, Nova reopened the channel and sent all the data about Harriman's body to Dongfang's display. A mechanical arm also reached out, fiddling with the tiny scales on Harriman's arm. "I see. It seems that our human bodies are indeed a bit weaker. The life forms from Pegasus appear to be more suited for space travel." "Yes, Captain. I've just extracted his blood. According to the analysis, their average lifespan should be between 200 to 250 years. Their physical quality is far superior to that of humans. Is there anything else?" Dongfang listened with great interest, a curious expression on his face. "There's nothing particularly special. However, after genetic comparison, they seem to have evolved from a type of reptilian creature. It's hard to determine exactly which one. We should be able to find some clues on Pegasus. Who cares what creature they evolved from? Let's start implanting the chip." All right. The two stopped talking and turned their attention to Harriman. A mechanical arm quietly appeared on the floor directly beneath the back of his head. It had only 3 fingers. As the first finger extended, a very thin laser beam shot out from its tip. It hit the skin outside the area where Nova had already marked for the chip implant. Then it gently glided over, easily cutting a small incision of only 1 centimeter through the skin, muscle, and the incredibly hard skull. At that moment, Dongfang smelled the scent of roasted meat. He sniffed. "Xiaoyu, this is thermal laser. It also has a burning effect." He keenly noticed that although the skin had been cut, not a single drop of blood flowed out. Yes, the outer layer of the laser is extremely hot, and when it cuts through the skin, it burns and seals the capillaries, preventing any blood from flowing out. Many medical institutions on the Blue Planet are now using similar technologies. It's not uncommon. It seems I was a bit uninformed. The chip implantation has not been halted due to inquiries from the East. The second mechanical finger emerged. The transparent metal cover at its top popped open, revealing a small cluster of pink cells. The mechanical finger moved swiftly, entering Harriman's head in an instant and then coming to a stop. It remained still for a full minute without retracting. "Captain, it is linking with the neurons." In the holographic image, a bright light emitted from the area of Harriman's head, seemingly signaling something. The East immediately raised their gaze, clearly observing the actions of the finger after it entered the wound. It turned out that after the cell cluster was sent to the designated location, numerous metal threads popped out from the metal finger, scattering like a blooming metal flower, penetrating deeply into Harriman's cerebral cortex, constantly moving and stretching. Before long, they all retracted, seemingly tugging at something, gently adhering to the cell cluster. Then, the fingers slightly advanced, placing the cell cluster into the folds of Harriman's cerebral cortex. Upon contact with the cortex, the cell cluster integrated rapidly, like a droplet merging into the ocean, and then vanished. At this time, the second finger retracted, and the third finger emerged. A green laser shot at the wound. The previously cracked skull visibly healed at an astonishing speed, and then restored. Next, the laser moved to the wound, and the damaged skin immediately gathered and shrank. Finally, fine hair emerged, covering the bald patch completely. There was no evidence that a cut had just been made there. Your Excellency, the surgery is complete. Can we wake him up? Chapter 272. Here it comes. Harriman let out some unintelligible sounds, and then his eyelids began to flutter rapidly, as if he were about to wake up any moment. Xiaoyu, you haven't mentioned the function of the chip. The East suddenly thought of a crucial issue upon seeing Harriman about to wake up. Oh, I forgot. Let him sleep for a few more minutes. Nova covered her mouth with both hands, bending forward slightly, her little face flushed, looking incredibly adorable. The East was transfixed, his face reddening involuntarily as he turned his head slightly. However, his gaze remained fixed on the exposed area of her uniform collar. Wow, that's quite something. I didn't notice that before. This is a control chip specially developed by the Earthring Star to manage criminals. Functionally, this chip is no different from the one in your brain. It also possesses basic intelligence and can serve as the best assistant for the implant recipient, providing the most efficient help in learning, daily life, or combat. Of course, this is not its primary function, as it was originally designed to control the behavior of criminal individuals. Due to different connection methods, it links with the central control nerves of humans while connecting to neurons. Simply put, it can control the actions, speech, and physical state of the implanted individual. Additionally, it hides an intelligent assistant at its core, which can automatically record and analyze the host's behavioral state when the network is unavailable. If the host's behavior poses a threat, it will immediately take over the body control, putting the host in a controlled state, ensuring that not even the slightest secret is revealed. Quite impressive. The Eastern figure was very satisfied. Such a powerful control chip was exactly what he needed now. By the way, its underlying logic designates you as the highest authority, and it can be operated through thought. Just a simple thought will suffice. Nova straightened up, tilting his head with a grin. For example, right now, you can control him, just like how you design things using the chip. Just move your hand. The Eastern figure thought to himself. A faint biological signal emanated from his brain. The unconscious Harriman immediately lifted his hand, but due to the restraints, it only moved a short distance. Open your eyes. The Eastern figure issued another command. Harriman immediately opened his eyes, but since he was not fully awake, there was no light in his pupils, resembling a puppet. Lift your leg, open your mouth, chew. The Eastern figure, as if he had received a new toy, tried every control he could think of. As a result, every command issued received an immediate and precise response. It was effortless, everything went smoothly. Could it be damaged? The Eastern figure paused. No, the biological chip is made by extracting the host's DNA information during production, and once completed, it is implanted into the host's body, becoming a part of the host's brain. As long as the host does not experience brain death, the chip will continue to function normally. Nova kept explaining the underlying design logic, principles, and functions of the chip to the Eastern figure. Half an hour later, he finally stopped, during which Harriman was continuously injected with anesthetics, sleeping soundly. All right, wake him up. The Eastern figure clapped his hands and returned to his seat. All the instruments around the single bed retracted. The bed transformed back into a seat. Moreover, the metal restraints that had bound Harriman's limbs also retracted simultaneously. Harriman regained his freedom. I haven't slept this comfortably in a long time. Harriman stretched and stood up from the seat. Master. Then he saw the Eastern figure sitting comfortably in the seat, legs crossed, looking at him leisurely. He immediately knelt on one knee, offering the highest salute of the Pegasus Star. Rise, Harriman. From today on, you are my first servant. Yes, my great master, I pledge my loyalty to you. Until the moment life ends, never betray. Harriman raised his left hand, fingers clenched into a fist, and struck it heavily against his heart. Only then did he stand up. Master, my foolish brothers should be arriving soon. I kindly request that you implement the capture plan as per my suggestion. This is not something you should worry about. Focus on preparing for your return to the designated star. You may leave now. As he spoke these words, Dongfang simultaneously issued a command through a chip. Harriman had intended to ask about the damage to the spaceship, but he found himself unable to speak, and his body uncontrollably turned and walked toward the hatch. It wasn't until he entered a small spaceship that he regained control of his body. What is happening? Why is my body completely out of control? The shock in Harriman's heart reached an unprecedented level. He had no idea what Dongfang had done to him. After just a short nap, he had even lost control over his own body. The unknown is the most terrifying. At that moment, Harriman felt utterly hopeless, and his desire to temporarily placate Dongfang and then devise a plan upon returning to the designated planet was completely dashed. With a long sigh, he slumped into his seat. Captain, there is again an abnormal spatial fluctuation near the wormhole. The people Harriman mentioned should be arriving soon. On the way back to the bridge, Dongfang received another communication from Nova. It seemed that Harriman's previous warning was indeed not a lie. Have preparations been made according to the previous plan? Dongfang's pace remained unchanged, still leisurely walking down the corridor. Soon, he returned to the bridge. Of course, I arranged enough battleships. As soon as they exit the wormhole, we can immediately implement the capture. Then I await your good news. Steele was comfortably lying in the sleep chamber. During the passage through the wormhole, the spaceship would enter super high-speed flight, and even the robust physique of those from the designated star could not withstand the impact of the flight. Thus, after sacrificing countless lives, the civilization had discovered this safest way to travel. However, this sleep flight method has a significant drawback. Once the spaceship enters the wormhole, it will activate autopilot, and all crew members will fall into the sleep chamber. If someone is waiting on the other side of the wormhole, the spaceship would face total annihilation. Even if the crew awakens, it would only take a mere 3 minutes. Steele entered the wormhole relatively late. In fact, he had arrived near the wormhole much earlier, but being cautious, he did not enter immediately. Instead, he silently lingered for a day, and only after confirming that no dangerous information was relayed back did he order the spaceship to enter the wormhole. Naturally, a large number of his followers, who were eager to follow him, entered as well. He felt somewhat complacent as he entered sleep. This was the demeanor expected of the first heir. Now, they are about to fly out of the wormhole and enter the solar system, as he has already sensed the sweet aroma of the revival potion. Captain, the target has exited the wormhole, requesting entry authorization. You may proceed. Take them all down without leaving a single one. Understood. Chapter 273. A complete capture. As the core figure of the family, Steele naturally could not be the first to enter the wormhole. In front of him were 5 ships forming a formation, serving as vanguards to pave the way for the main fleet. However, since this was a small wormhole, the ships could only enter one by one. Just as Nova reported a spatial fluctuation to the east, the ships carrying the heirs of Pegasus had already reached the exit of the wormhole. With a buzzing sound, the first ship's nose emerged, followed by the hull, and then it surged forward. It was as if it had broken free from the constraints of space, suddenly appearing in the solar system, looking incredibly special. After exiting the wormhole, the first ship did not stop immediately. Instead, it quickly flew away from the vicinity of the wormhole, heading towards the sun. It goes without saying that this was to replenish energy, and of course, to leave enough space for the ships following behind. Dongfang glanced at the timer. 20 seconds had already passed in the blink of an eye. In another 30 seconds or so, the personnel on the ship would awaken. While he was speaking, the second ship flew out, followed by more ships continuously emerging. The time intervals were kept very stable, around 20 seconds each. Xiaoyu, hurry up and get ready. They will be waking up soon. With so many ships, we can't afford to be too slow, or it will take more effort. Dongfang frowned as he watched the ships continuously flying out. What is Nova doing? Still thinking of playing around? Hee. Captain, you can rest assured. Everything has been prepared perfectly. Hey, you even learned to speak like those from the northeast. After responding to Dongfang, Nova extended her delicate fingers and snapped them in the air. Perhaps to make it clearer for Dongfang, a faint blue light flickered on the top of the crescent-shaped ship. Familiar battleships revealed their menacing main gun barrels. Each ship from Pegasus was closely accompanied by a battleship. Dongfang knew that this time there would be no unexpected occurrences in the capture. Just as he thought of this, the hatches of the battleships opened, and from each battleship, a small flying vehicle shot out. From a distance, they looked like pins flying in the air, slender bodies with pointed tips. The assault-type electromagnetic warships. As soon as they exited the hatches, the ships steadily landed above the bridge of the Pegasus ships. The holographic images quickly enlarged, providing Dongfang with a clearer view. A ray shot out from the top of the battleship, cutting a hole in the transparent aluminum window in front of the bridge. Then the belly of the battleship opened, and a smaller flying vehicle swiftly entered through the breach, landing above the main control computer, where a mechanical arm extended. Lines of code began to scroll across the control computer's screen. Just as it was said, things moved quickly. In just a moment, the central control computer's screen restored to its initial window operation state. Captain, all ship takeover operations have been completed. The sedative has been completely stopped, and the awakening agent has been released again. Nova reappeared before Dongfang. She waved her hand gently, and all ships came to a halt. A blue light flashed, and they vanished in unison. Xiaoyu, what is our progress? A total of 51 ships entered through the wormhole, and all ships are now under control. With the optical cloaking system activated, the ships will form a fleet to return to the lunar base. Steele felt a bit dazed. His physique was exceptionally strong, as he always woke up over 20 seconds earlier than others during wormhole travel. Due to this special skill, he cautiously controlled the amount of sedative injected each time he entered a wormhole, significantly reducing the time the ship was out of control. This time was no different. He intentionally controlled the dosage of the sedative. He was very familiar with this route, and the ship's travel time through the wormhole could even be measured in milliseconds. However, such information was generally not known to regular heirs. But as the first heir of the family, the son of the clan leader, how could he not know? His ship had just reached the edge of the wormhole when the awakening agent in the sleep chamber began to be slowly released. That's why he was drowsily sensing the sweet aroma. Suddenly, he felt the sweet smell vanish quickly, replaced by another familiar scent. The bitter almond smell. A nerve anesthetic? A few seconds later, the drowsy Steele felt his eyelids grow heavier and drifted off to sleep again. Thus, the trial mission of the Demos family came to a successful end, with all heirs being thoroughly dealt with by Dongfang. The council's plan to train heirs was completely dashed. However, Dongfang's actions indeed created a hidden danger. Without Harriman's reminder, he would have dealt with all those lowlifes before considering the follow-up handling during the interrogation process. The risk of that approach was that the elders of the Demos family might notice something unusual. They could send personnel to investigate again, putting the situation on Blue Star in great danger. But Harriman, in order to save himself, demonstrated his value. He racked his brain to think of these matters, which indeed helped Dongfang resolve a significant problem. Speaking of Harriman, his condition was even worse now. The cargo ship he was on was also equipped with holographic imaging. Just as the remaining 51 ships entered the solar system, the corners of the cabin lit up. A shrunk crescent-shaped ship appeared before Harriman's eyes, giving him a shock that made him forget his previous frustration. Harriman jumped up at lightning speed, pressing his back tightly against the cabin wall. Had it not been for the holographic imaging not causing any harm upon contact with his body, Harriman would have thought he was about to be hit by the ship. This display looks incredibly realistic, if only it were a bit smaller. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and collapsed into his seat, not wanting to move at all. Today's experience was more thrilling than his entire life over the past 20 years combined. Alright, the image scaling has been completed for you. Though small, it's fully functional. The transport ship's capabilities are not lacking at all. As the mechanical electronic sound echoed, the 3D holographic image rapidly shrank until it became the size of an A3 sheet. The ships and planets inside shrank proportionally as well. Harriman even felt an illusion that he was now a deity, overlooking the world. He extended a finger and gently touched the familiar ship. Unfortunately, all functions had long been disabled, and his finger passed through the ship without any change in the image. Then he witnessed a scene he would never forget. One ship after another was completely controlled in less than 20 seconds. He guessed there would be sporadic battles, but that scene never occurred. To my master, this was just a game. Harriman let out a bitter smile, putting aside all his thoughts. Chapter 274, Return Journey Captain. As per your instructions, I have shown Harriman the entire capture process. Harriman's heart rate has stabilized from the initial reporting state to a constant level. Other biological indicators, such as breathing, brainwave dispersion, and pupil contraction suggest that he will no longer entertain any unrealistic ideas. Nova had just entered the command ship's bridge when he began reporting the situation nonstop. Understood. The biological chip has just fed back the relevant information. Let us give him some time. First, we need to repair Harriman's ship. Oh, and the crew he brought along must be properly handled as well. Then, we'll replace them all with bionic robots and take a trip to the Pegasus star system to conduct an on-site investigation of their situation and see if they really have the capability to organize thousands of warships, as that kid said. If they do, everything will proceed as planned. If not, well. Just then, while Nova was talking to Dongfang, the transport ship Harriman was on came to a stop. The screen that originally displayed the capture of the Pegasus star system ships transformed into an image of Harriman's somewhat shabby ship. Suddenly, a square-shaped vessel appeared in the holographic display. Its design was significantly different from a normal ship. The bridge was small, and the belly of the ship was a cube, surrounded by 4 smaller rectangles. It was unclear what they were for. Harriman felt as if it resembled a turtle resting in the air, slowly descending beside the hatch of his ship. 4 structures, resembling turtle feet, opened up, and 4 thick steel cables shot out, firmly gripping the corners of the hatch. Harriman then realized that these were not feet at all, but steel cables stored to integrate with the ship. It turned out that advanced civilizations also utilized mechanical structures. Request for communication. I am familiar with all the systems of the spacecraft. Master, please allow me to assist. Harriman was about to send a communication, and he asked to have Dongfang transported to the spacecraft as well. As a guide and the owner of the spacecraft, he would help with its maintenance. The main hatch of the crescent-shaped spacecraft had already opened automatically. The hatch of a rather uniquely shaped, bulbous spacecraft that was attached to it also opened simultaneously. Robots, a massive number of them, flew out from inside. The holographic image in the cabin expanded on its own without Harriman's control. He noticed that each robot was covered with a blue energy shield. Could this be the energy shield we have long dreamed of? A look of disbelief appeared in Harriman's eyes. So the energy shield could actually be made this small. Before he could regain his composure, The content of the 3D holographic image changed again. The army of robots had entered the cabin and was continuously advancing along the corridor. The image followed in real time, allowing him to see every movement of the robots clearly. Wherever they went, the doors opened automatically, almost acting more like the master than Harriman himself. Because the path was clear, the robots quickly reached the core section of the spacecraft, the power compartment. To Harriman's astonishment, the engineering and maintenance robots completed the repairs. The repair task that he thought was impossible was easily accomplished by the robots. Harriman could even tell from the operation that the engine was in excellent condition. Soon after, all the lighting facilities in the spacecraft lit up. A brand new spacecraft appeared before his eyes. Harriman. A familiar voice echoed in his mind. Harriman instinctively jumped up from his seat and bowed deeply, his attitude even more respectful than meeting his own father. Get up, Dongfang replied lightly. May I ask, Master, where are you? Standing up, Harriman looked around but found nothing. It was at that moment he realized the voice was coming directly from his mind. In the next moment, Dongfang's figure appeared before Harriman. I am everywhere. Great Master, your strength has made me lose myself. Please give me your guidance. Harriman bowed again, his large head nearly touching the deck. All right, rise. Board your spacecraft and follow me. Harriman's vision went dark as Dongfang disappeared again. Then he felt a jolt beneath his feet. The spacecraft had started on its own and flew into the newly repaired Explorer. Captain, what shall we do next? Are we returning to the lunar base? Nova, standing obediently behind Dongfang, whispered. No, Lao Yu and the others must be getting anxious. Let's go home. Our technological progress has slowed a bit. If another civilization like the White Horse or the Western Horse comes, Blue Star will be in danger. A hint of anxiety flashed in Dongfang's eyes. It seemed that although he didn't say it, he still had some worries in his heart. This is also the reason why Harriman suggested taking action. All right, I can't wait to go home, where there's delicious roasted whole lamb. Nova clapped his hands and laughed, looking innocent and carefree. All he thinks about is food. This time when we go back, we need to speed up the research and development. No problem. The spaceship is the pinnacle of a civilization's technology, so as long as we study the spaceship, we can grasp most of their technology. After capturing the spaceship last time, I have fully absorbed their technology. Of course, the key point is that the technology of Pegasus Star is very similar to that of Blue Star, so it won't be unusable like the technology of the Earth Ring Star, which has surpassed many civilizations. That's good. Give me a copy of the data from Pegasus Star, and we'll proceed in sync. All right then. Yu Qingrui sat in the office with a frown. Before the chairman left, he had already divided all the researchers into two groups. Just when everyone was excited and ready to devote themselves to work, the big boss suddenly left for several days. The enthusiasm of the researchers dropped significantly, and they felt demotivated. After all, everyone had experienced the chairman's intense work pace, which was smooth and unobstructed. Looking at their own progress, which felt like they were holding back, anyone would miss that exhilarating feeling, and Yu Qingrui was no exception. Old Yu, why the long face? I've told you many times to maintain a healthy mindset. Dongfang pushed open the office door and walked in, with Nova following closely behind. Chairman, you're back. I missed you so much. Yu Qingrui's frowning face immediately brightened, smiling like a blooming flower. Miss Gong, hello. He wasn't geophone, but socializing was also his strong suit. I don't swing that way. Why are you thinking of me? Chairman Yu. All right, I'm not joking with you anymore. Are you all ready, comrades? Let's dive into the RD. Dongfang laughed heartily, feeling a bit better, as the safety of all humanity rested on his shoulders. It constantly reminded him of the immense pressure. All set, just waiting for your return. Chapter 275. New Project. Yu Qingrui was right. The comrades had been prepared for a long time, with Hu Yang shouting in the group. Everyone immediately put down their work and gathered towards the two largest laboratories in the base. Dongfang acted even faster. He was already waiting in the open space outside the laboratory with Nova, Yu Qingrui, and Hu Yang. To preserve the environment, even in the large open area, complete hardening was not done. The ground was paved with the kind of porous bricks often used in urban ecological parking lots, with green grass growing through the cracks, covering the entire open space. It looked refreshingly green and pleasant. The colleagues arrived quickly. In less than 10 minutes since Dongfang stood still, 210 researchers were already in position. They lined up in 4 neat rows. Although their outfits varied, their momentum had completely dispelled the previous lethargy. Each of them stared intently at Dongfang, their eyes practically devouring him. Comrades, are you all ready? Always prepared. The researchers are full of vigor and enthusiasm. Great. Seeing everyone in such good spirits makes me very pleased. This fully showcases the style of all employees at the space base. Just now, I assured our big boss that we will dedicate ourselves to our future work with the utmost enthusiasm. I want to ask everyone, can we achieve this? Yes. Again. In unison. I hope you can fulfill your promise. Yu Qingrui waved his hand vigorously, putting down the microphone. He turned to face the east. Chairman, it's all set. The comrades are all fired up. Yu Xingrui clasped his hands together, as if praying, and bowed slightly to the east. You old you. Always getting caught up in these useless things. I asked you to call everyone here to inform them to split into 2 groups to advance the project. Not to come here to rally emotions. Dongfang chuckled at this, giving Yu Xingrui a hearty pat on the shoulder. He gestured towards the direction of Nova Station. Oh, I got so excited I forgot. I only remembered to stir emotions and forgot about the grouping. Yu Xingrui's face turned red. He had initially planned to gloss over it. How could such a young girl handle a research project? I hope the chairman isn't just trying to flatter her because she's young and pretty. So he was a bit worried that Dongfang might be misled, wanting to provoke excitement. In his excitement, he forgot about that and ended up taking responsibility for one group himself. However, seeing Dongfang bring it up again, even though he had 1,000 thoughts in his mind, he couldn't let them out. After so many hardships in society, Yu Xingrui had also become smarter. Despite feeling a bit awkward inside, he still smiled brightly. Turning back, he picked up the microphone again. Comrades, there's one more thing. This time, our research team will be divided into 2 groups. The chairman will lead one group, while the other group will be managed by Assistant Gong Xiaoyu, and I will be her deputy. Don't underestimate Xiaoyu just because she's a young woman. You must support her just like you support the chairman. Do you understand? We understand. The response was weak. What did we just say? And now you're slacking off. Do you understand? Louder. Yu Xingrui raised his voice an octave, his roar echoing across the desert base. We understand. This time, everyone's voices were loud and clear. Dongfang subtly nodded. Yu Xingrui truly was impressive, as he considered that Nova's first public appearance without any achievements would be hard to gain acceptance. Therefore, he willingly took on the role of deputy to assist an assistant whose abilities he wasn't even sure of. If Xiaoyu couldn't handle it, he could still push the project forward in his capacity as deputy. This is not only about giving a ride, but also ensuring a smooth journey. Good comrade. Good subordinate. Old you. Well done. Don't hesitate. Let us get straight to the project. Dongfang, being someone who wasn't good at expressing emotions, a typical man from the northwest, stepped forward and gently patted Yu Xingrui's shoulder 3 times, saying, I can see your contributions to the company, and I will not treat you unfairly. Chairman, what are you saying? You have saved my child's life, and I will repay you for that. What are you 2 talking about? Everyone is waiting. Nova, seeing the 2 whispering for a while without any action, couldn't contain his excitement to lead a team of researchers. A smiling face appeared from behind Dongfang and said, Look how excited you are. That's good. Dongfang unconsciously reached out his hand and affectionately patted Nova on the head. Nova closed his eyes, looking completely enchanted, as if he was very comfortable being patted by Dongfang. Head pat attack. A trending internet phrase popped into Yu Xingrui's mind. See no evil, hear no evil. He quietly turned around, picked up the microphone, and drew everyone's attention to himself. Comrades, shall we begin? The previous groupings remain unchanged. Group 1 will work with the chairman, and Group 2 will assist me with Assistant Gong. The crowd on the open ground began to move, splitting into 2 teams and entering the designated laboratories 1 and 2. Xiaoyu, we need to speed up this time and leave behind outdated methods. Let's directly start with the basic anti-gravity engine and the spaceship project. As Yu Xingrui and Hu Yang organized the personnel, Dongfang spoke up. Chairman, this is a systematic project. I have no issues with the engine and the spaceship, but for long-term travel in space, establishing an ecosystem is essential. Otherwise, with the frail bodies of the Blue Star people, they simply cannot adapt to prolonged space travel. You don't need to worry about that. We have plenty of talent in environmental engineering here. I will pull some people out to form a 3rd task force. Both projects will advance simultaneously. You will be in charge of the overall construction of the spaceship, and I will push the engine development. Okay. Nova nodded, and as they turned at the same time, they walked into the laboratories behind them. Everyone, I believe you are curious about why we have gathered you all for public research. Yes, Chairman. What project are we preparing to launch? The staff, now wearing white lab coats, nodded in agreement. We are going to do something big. Have you heard of the anti-gravity engine? I've heard of it, but Chairman, can we really do it? Hu Yang stood at the front. After some time of study, she had made significant progress compared to before and at least had some understanding of the technology that humanity yearns for. Therefore, she was curious about what an anti-gravity engine was and couldn't help but raise her hand to ask. Remove the can we, in front of our all-powerful chairman. Nothing is impossible. But the anti-gravity technology is ranked as the 4th greatest challenge among humanity's 8 great challenges. Hu Yang said, her face full of disbelief, shaking her head like a rattle drum. Chapter 276. The Mystery of Gravitational Waves. The researchers also showed curious expressions, filled with disbelief. They know the chairman is ambitious, but it hasn't reached an extraordinary level yet. So the laboratory buzzed with murmurs as everyone unconsciously began to whisper. Could this be possible? A gravity engine. ISNT, that's something out of fantasy? Staff member A. Yeah. Did the chairman read some sci-fi novel to come up with this idea? Staff member B. Well, maybe there will be a miracle? The chairman has created miracles before, hasn't he? Staff member C. An optimist. Had witnessed how challenges were solved as easily as answering elementary math problems in the East. TCH. More people expressed their disdain for him, thinking he was just a brown-noser. They quietly labeled him in their minds. With keen hearing, the chairman could clearly distinguish every comment made. However, his expression remained unchanged. He could calmly accept the employees' distrust. After all, if it were him, he wouldn't dare to believe it either, right? So he raised his hands and gently pressed down. Everyone quiet down. Hu Yang raised her voice, her pleasant tone overpowering all others, and the laboratory fell silent. Everyone closed their mouths. The chairman didn't rush to speak. He walked to the deepest part of the lab and stepped onto a platform slightly over 5 feet high. He turned on the electronic display and wrote 3 big characters: gravitational waves. It seemed he had to give everyone a lesson first. Otherwise, lack of unity would be detrimental to the project. After all, many fragmented tasks still required their attention. Since the chairman had this understanding, his action of writing on the electronic screen was easy to comprehend. He was about to start teaching, aside from when the company was first established. This was his first time teaching a group of researchers. At that moment, he felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Teaching a group of experts, ISNT, that impressive? I believe everyone here has heard of gravitational waves. I trust that even if no one has studied it in depth, they have some grasp of it, right? Yes, Chairman. Gravitational waves and the gravity engine are indeed closely related. We certainly know that. That's good to hear. But to prevent some colleagues from getting too caught up in their work and forgetting this concept, I'll start from the basics. Gravitational waves in physics refer to ripples in the curvature of space-time. They propagate outward in wave form from the source of radiation. As early as 1916, the great scientist Einstein predicted the existence of gravitational waves based on general relativity. Unfortunately, due to the technological limitations of that time, people were unable to detect them. However, in recent years, scientists from many countries around the world have been dedicated to building gravitational wave detectors. On October 16, 2017, scientists from various countries held a synchronized press conference to announce that humanity had directly detected gravitational waves generated from the merger of 2 neutron stars for the first time. The chairman paused for a moment and took a sip of the tea that Hu Yang brought him. At the same time, it is also to leave enough time for colleagues to memorize a bit. First of all, I want to tell everyone that gravitational waves really exist and are not just a matter of language. Next, let's discuss the deeper meaning of gravitational waves. As you know, gravitational waves are the effects of space-time curvature, which means that such curvature may be caused by certain existing entities. Generally speaking, within a given volume, the greater the mass contained, the greater the curvature at the boundaries of that volume. To put it simply, when an object moves through space-time, its boundaries will change, reflecting the changes in curvature and the position of the object. If, under certain specific conditions, an accelerated object can cause changes in curvature and propagate at the speed of light, then it is a gravitational wave. The researchers nodded, understanding that the chairman's explanation was indeed quite basic. When a gravitational wave passes by an observer, they can notice that the space-time is distorted at that moment. Many people can observe this phenomenon when a fighter jet flies by at high speed. Of course, this is just an example. Not to say that gravitational waves can be observed by the naked eye. On the contrary, the effects of gravitational waves are very small and have strong penetration. So even the strongest gravitational wave effects do not attract our attention. For instance, right now, gravitational waves are passing through you and me, but no one can observe them. Of course, someone might ask, after all this, what is the relationship between gravitational waves and anti-gravity? I want to tell you that not only is there a relationship, but it is a significant one. In 1992, several foreign experts discovered that an object placed on a high-speed rotating superconductor lost weight. Gravitational waves can actually make objects weightless. Additionally, scientists found that if gravitational waves are used to bombard a stationary object, the object will begin to move. What does this indicate? High-speed motion generates gravitational waves. Matter becomes weightless, and gravitational waves provide propulsion. This is the dawn of our ability to realize anti-gravity engines. If we can find a way to control the direction of the gravitational wave jets, then can we create an engine? The lecture from the Eastern speaker came to an end, and seeing the researchers in the audience deep in thought, he nodded in satisfaction, taking a big gulp of water from his cup. Chairman, I feel like I'm in a fog. I seem to understand. Yet I also feel like I haven't grasped anything. Hu Yang leaned closer to the Eastern speaker, seemingly afraid of disturbing others' thoughts. Her voice was very low. She is a good girl who always considers others' feelings. Is that so? That means you didn't study physics seriously in university. The Eastern speaker replied leisurely, crossing his legs. feeling quite satisfied that his colleagues had indeed absorbed his lecture. This was the talent he needed. Are you implying that my university physics was taught by a PE teacher? Just say it directly. I am open to feedback. A promising student can be taught. But I don't have the time to educate you on the basics. Just handle the logistics for everyone. In a while, gather all the personnel from the environmental engineering department and form a separate group. We also need to kick off another project. This is my strong suit, but boss, do we really need to start another project? Isn't this going to be too much for you to handle? You worry too much. Just let me take care of it. No problem. I am your boss after all. Dongfang's mood was indeed good, and he made a rare joke. All right then, please go ahead. The two fell silent again. Dongfang continued to sip his tea, while Huyang picked up his phone and started typing away. It goes without saying that Huyang had already begun to push forward with the tasks assigned by Dongfang. Chairman, you are truly a genius. I believe in you. Whatever you say goes, we will follow your lead. The team leader, Wang Hui, was the first to raise his head. He didn't disturb his colleagues, but walked up to Dongfang and said firmly. Just as he finished speaking, another team member spoke up. Chairman, please assign the tasks. Following that, everyone looked up. Yes, we can't wait any longer. Chapter 277. How to start. Seeing everyone in this state, I felt very pleased. It clearly showed that our team is united and strong. I believe that no problem is too difficult for us. Let me ask everyone again, do you have confidence? Dongfang stood up from his seat and scanned the room, looking at all the researchers below. His expression was serious, his gaze firm and powerful, nodding slightly while turning his body. The researchers below, however, felt a different sensation. They all thought that the chairman was looking at them. Suddenly, everyone felt a surge of confidence. They sensed that Dongfang was encouraging them. Unexpectedly, after experiencing so many events, Dongfang had mastered this skill. Do you have confidence? Hearing the loud and uniform response from everyone, Dongfang burst into a hearty laugh. Then, I will proceed with the group assignments. Since the researchers in the environmental engineering direction have other arrangements, we will exclude them. Therefore, out of our 102 members, Comrade Huyang, as my assistant, will not participate in the specific project development. The remaining 99 members will be divided into 3 groups of 33 each, the structural group, the system group, and the materials group. Now, I will announce the appointments of the group leaders. The structural group, Group 1, will be led by Wang Hui. The system group, which is the software support group, will be Group 2, led by Su Xiang. The materials group, Group 3, will be led by Hou Fei. The personnel list for each group is as follows. Dongfang then proceeded to assign members to each group, which was the conclusion drawn by Nova after analyzing everyone's information, taking into account each person's strengths and weaknesses. It was truly the best allocation plan in the world. Therefore, everyone felt an unusual sense of comfort, as if the allocations were exactly what they had hoped for. Chairman, shall we get started? The 3 group leaders gathered in front of Dongfang, and Wang Hui spoke first. Are you all familiar with your group members? Dongfang casually asked. The personnel have been assigned, but he still had some concerns about the actual collaboration. No problem. Everyone is familiar with each other. After all, we've worked together for such a long time. Even if we haven't communicated much, we recognize each other well enough. We will overcome the difficulties ourselves. You can rest assured. Wang Hui nodded vigorously and patted his chest. The remaining 3 also looked determined. They had fully absorbed Dongfang's motivational words. That's good. Let's get started. Dongfang smiled and patted Wang Hui on the shoulder, clearly satisfied. However, after Dongfang finished, a full 2 minutes passed, and the 4 of them still wore silly smiles. Standing there motionless. What are you all doing? I already know. Go ahead and get to work. Hee. Wang Hui rubbed his hands and chuckled foolishly. We want to start right away, but the problem is, it's like a tiger trying to eat the sky. We don't know where to begin. He seemed a bit embarrassed, as if feeling awkward about his own ignorance. This time it was Dongfang's turn to be at a loss for words. Although he had explained the principle of the anti-gravity engine thoroughly, he hadn't mentioned how to actually get started at all. He instinctively thought everyone would have an idea. But unexpectedly, these individuals, long educated by a certain civilization, simply couldn't break free from their fixed thinking patterns. All right, you all wait a moment. After soothing them, Dongfang turned to the back, where Huyang was secretly laughing. Huyang, what are you laughing at? He said, feigning anger, though he wasn't truly angry, just trying to lighten the atmosphere. Chairman, I wasn't laughing at anything in particular. I just thought everyone looked so happy, so I felt happy too. All right, call over that group of personnel we set aside earlier. I have something to arrange for them. Sure thing. Huyang appeared very obedient and immediately walked over to another group of about 15 individuals in lab coats. After a round of instruction, the researchers nodded in agreement, their faces showing knowing smiles. Then one of them stepped forward and approached Dongfang. Chairman, please give your instructions. Dongfang nodded and asked, are you Shang Lin, the doctoral student from the environmental engineering program? Yes, Chairman, you actually know me? Shang Lin, wearing thick glasses, strained his small eyes, trying to see how this big shot could know his name and field of study. Of course I know you, not only you, but I can call out the names of all the employees, Dongfang said lightly, as if telling him that this was basic practice, nothing extraordinary. Hearing this, Xiang Lin was excited. Where could he find such a good boss? The scale of the environmental company was unprecedented, with at least 20,000 employees according to incomplete statistics. In such a vast organization, the owner could remember each employee's name? What a level of dedication. Chairman, if you have any instructions, please feel free to say so. As long as it's something we can do, we will never refuse. Sometimes, winning people's hearts happens in an instant. It's astonishing yet truly exists. At this moment, what I think is that since the chairman treats me with such respect, I must repay it with my life. That's quite an exaggeration. I have a task for you. You know, our human bodies are still too weak. If we go into space or to various planets, it's impossible to rely solely on our physical bodies. I understand now. We need to create an ecosystem? A glimmer of light flashed in Xiang Lin's small eyes. This was his original intention for joining the aerospace company. Exactly. Dongfang nodded approvingly, quite satisfied with this middle-aged man with small eyes, a large forehead, and thick glasses. It's clear at a glance. All right. I have already submitted a report to General Yu, but since our focus is on spacecraft, it hasn't been approved yet. Now, this is great, Chairman. My brothers and I can fully dedicate ourselves to the project. Have you seen the experimental area in the northeast corner of the lab? That will be your battlefield. And feel free to come discuss any issues with me. Yes. Xiang Lin immediately turned around and called out to his team members, who followed him eagerly. He was indeed decisive. Dongfang chuckled. Chairman, what about us? Wang Hui asked anxiously. The remaining experimental area will be divided. One group will use one area, and the middle section will be managed by me, as the project leader, to oversee the project as progress. All right, enough talk. Let us get started. Dongfang waved his hand, and everyone walked toward the center of the large laboratory. In fact, everyone was overthinking it. Since it's an engine, we naturally need to design it to look like one. Dongfang stood in front of the electronic screen and casually sketched an inverted cylinder. However, the engine emits gravitational waves that we cannot see or feel. The researchers nodded in agreement, their faces showing expressions of realization. Have their thoughts been rigid? Chapter 278 From 0 to 1. As Dongfang delved deeper into his explanation, everyone showed a look of fascination. Some even took out their notebooks, frantically recording what Dongfang wrote on the electronic screen. His actions influenced everyone, and soon they pulled out various devices to start documenting, fearing they might miss even a little detail. Everyone can take notes, but absolutely no sharing of today's meeting content is allowed. Not even a single word should be leaked. Dongfang naturally noticed this situation and had to stop, emphasizing loudly. Chairman, rest assured. I guarantee that not even a punctuation mark will leak out. If there's a mistake, you can question me. Wang Hui stood up again. Although he looked serious, his playful words still made everyone smile. All right, let us continue. This is an entirely new project, and everyone is crossing the river by feeling the stones. So everyone needs to be a bit bolder. Don't be afraid of failure. In the past century, Haven T we often seen reports about unidentified flying objects. And there are a large number of witnesses and blurry videos, right? What do you think about these reports? Dongfang paused and displayed a CG animation of a witness on the electronic screen. A disc-shaped flying object soaring in the sky, its edges shimmering with bright light. The bottom constantly rotating and emitting faint glows. It moves at an incredible speed, making it seem as if it teleports. One moment it's at the horizon, and the next it's right in front of you. I got it. ISNT this the best reference. Wang Hui jumped up from his chair, laughing heartily. I believe anti-gravity engines can truly be realized. Dongfang nodded slightly, and from his expression, it was clear that Wang Hui was genuine. He had indeed been inspired. Of course, this was Dongfang's original intention. Otherwise, why would he bother to lecture everyone? He could just hide in a small room and finalize the blueprints himself. Cultivating talent and training the team was his primary goal. What do you think you figured out? Dongfang wouldn't miss such a good opportunity, so he asked. Look at the bottom of the rapidly spinning UFO. Doesn't it just prove the findings in the lab? High-speed rotation, weightlessness. The faint light being emitted downwards ISNT that gravitational waves. Clearly, Wang Hui truly grasped the concept. Yes, maybe they also have technology to enhance gravitational waves. That faint light should be the amplified gravitational waves. This is also the fundamental reason why their spacecraft are disc-shaped. Another researcher chimed in. Yes, 5 years ago, when gravitational waves were just a hypothesis, who would have thought that high-speed rotation would be the key to breakthrough anti-gravity engines? Everyone expressed their views, and it seemed that the ideas were flowing, with creative thoughts continuously emerging. The leaders of each group were especially excited, eager to try out their ideas. It looks like everyone has their own thoughts now, so let us not waste any more time. Everyone, take your positions and start working. All right, Chairman. After the responses, the crowd dispersed, each heading to their experimental area. Wang Hui was the fastest, jogging into the laboratory first. He opened the computer that had been prepared in advance and began typing rapidly on the keyboard. Hey, don't just focus on your own work. Assign some tasks to the others. A young researcher approached him from behind and said softly, "Oh, I got so anxious that I forgot about that." Having never led a group before, he felt a bit awkward, used to working alone. He scratched his head, thought for a moment, and then spoke up. Our first challenge is how to emit gravitational waves. So I suggest we split up to verify the practical applications of gravitational waves. Let us start by designing a high-speed rotating base, just like the one shown in the Chairman's image. Xiaoli, you're from the mechanical engineering department, so you'll be in charge of the mechanical design. By the way, everyone else from the same department can join your group. Wang Hui pointed at a person and then turned to another person in a white coat. Xiaoli, you will be in charge of the power supply system. And Comrade Ma Xiaoli, you will handle the communication protocol part. The most challenging theoretical validation and mathematical modeling will be my responsibility. After all, we studied applied mathematics. Wang Hui showed great gentleness towards the only female colleague. No problem, the two responded simultaneously, each taking their team and starting their work. As the saying goes, starting is the hardest part. Indeed, it was no exaggeration. Wang Hui exhausted all his efforts to barely complete the mathematical model. It had already been 10 days since the meeting was convened to gather everyone. However, a person immersed in a task does not notice the passage of time. As soon as the simulation software was completed, Wang Hui picked up the latest generation smartphone from a certain company and made a call. He was calling Hu Yang. And before he could finish his sentence, Hu Yang hurriedly ended the call and rushed towards the president's office. Wang Hui, on the other hand, sat comfortably in his chair, leaned back heavily, and cradled his head in his hands, admiring the engine that was continuously spinning rapidly in the simulation software. This was the data compiled from various teams after completing their respective module developments. The complete engine he produced emitted gravitational waves, constantly spraying outward, with a faint glow shining through. Wang Hui nodded in satisfaction. This was exactly what he wanted. Boss, I have good news." Hu Yang burst into Dongfang's office, calling out excitedly as soon as she entered. With a beaming smile, she rushed to his side. There has been a breakthrough on Wang Hui's side. Dongfang did not look up, but casually turned off the computer screen on his desk. In a quick glance, Hu Yang seemed to catch sight of a metallic object slowly rotating. "Boss, what is this?" "Hey, why did you turn it off?" "Nothing, just an image." Dongfang reopened the screen, and indeed a picture of a UFO appeared in the center. "No more questions. Let us hurry and check out the results from Wang Hui and the others." Dongfang stood up and closed the screen again, heading toward the door. "Wait, what I just saw doesn't seem to be this." But he didn't even touch the computer. Hu Yang was puzzled and quickly followed Dongfang. "Boss, I got the news and came right away. What do you think of my performance as an assistant?" This carefree and decisive woman could sometimes be quite charming. Very good," Dongfang replied perfunctorily before striding out of the elevator and getting into the vehicle within the base. "Slow down, I can't keep up with my long legs." Hu Yang waved her hands behind him, jogging to catch up. "How's the simulation?" Dongfang stood behind Wang Hui, looking at the continuously spinning engine, even though it looked quite ugly. "Chairman, you're here." Wang Hui stood up, respectfully looking at Dongfang. "With your inspiration, everyone's ideas have been flowing. Just now, a breakthrough from 0 to 1 has been completed." Chapter 279, 3D Casting and Forging Integrated Machine. The person from the east nodded slightly, acknowledging that the explanation was already very thorough. With a bit of effort, there would definitely be gains. However, he did not expect that these individuals were indeed impressive, putting in their utmost effort to push the project forward. In just 10 days, preliminary results had emerged. Moreover, from the external structure, it appeared to be correct. Has the computer simulation been fully completed? Yes, we tested various data, and under high-speed rotation, the base would quickly emit gravitational waves. The body of the engine installed on the upper part would rapidly lose weight. It could reduce its own weight by over 70, and the gravitational waves would spiral outwards towards the bottom, further causing the engine, including the body, to lose weight, swiftly counteracting its own gravity and presenting a state of super high speed. In the laboratory, a few more people entered. The person from the east turned around and saw that they were the group leaders he had appointed. It turned out that upon hearing the big shot's arrival, they had all put down their work to join the excitement. "Yes, Chairman, we have already begun the physical production, but due to limitations in the manufacturing process, the base is currently unable to produce suitable mechanical structures. We have sent the relevant technical specifications to the machinery manufacturing plant, and I believe we will soon be able to conduct physical tests." The materials group member spoke up. "Is there any other difficulty?" The East nodded. The good communication between subsidiaries had saved him a lot of trouble. This was to Gao Yuan's credit, and he should be noted for it. "Yes, There is another issue regarding materials. The high-speed rotating base will generate a lot of heat, causing metal materials to deform, and the motor will also operate under overload. This affects the operating state of the engine to some extent, meaning that the operation of the verification machine can only last for about 1 minute. Wang Hui took over the conversation, stating that this was just a problem encountered during the computer simulation. He knew that if they entered physical verification, even more issues would arise. However, he was prepared and confident that they could overcome all difficulties, even if it took some time. You don't need to worry about this. Our company's materials laboratory has already achieved results. We have ultralight graphene and super thermal insulation materials. Later, you can contact Wang Chen to have him send the materials to the machinery manufacturing plant. Understood. Everyone has done very well. Let us take a few days off and continue pushing forward once the components from the manufacturing plant arrive. By the way, Huyang, don't forget to distribute bonuses to everyone. The person from the east sat by the computer, carefully reviewing the simulation. It was well done. The engine was almost usable and only needed further improvements. He then turned to the others and said, "Understood." Huyang playfully saluted, standing up straight, which accentuated her figure. The eyes of the group leaders were wide open, each one swallowing hard, unable to focus even on the bonuses. Dongfang followed their gaze and took a look. Didn't he expect it to be quite impressive? Ahem, everyone, go back and rest. I'll check on Xiaoyu. Dongfang's face turned red, and he immediately got up and left. Nova's laboratory was very close to Dongfang's, just a wall apart if counted precisely. While Dongfang was checking the simulation, the laboratory was bustling with activity. The 780th person had gathered in the middle of the lab, nervously staring at a special machine on the floor. It consisted of 3 parts. The first part was a huge metal platform placed in the open space, with a mechanical arm resembling a desk lamp moving along its edge. The second part was a large metal box with a sizable display screen on its side, which was continuously running codes. The third part was a round machine that emitted a rumbling sound, with staff continually feeding metal into it. The lamp-like mechanical arm was moving slowly, and at its top was a nozzle. As it moved, it sprayed a silver liquid and emitted 2 streams of blue flames, flashing with dazzling light. The speed of the mechanical arm could only be described as crawling, yet everyone remained silent. Only the roar of the third part echoed through the lab. When Dongfang pushed the door open, he happened to see everyone holding their breath, staring intently at the device. Wow, is this a 3D metal printer? Dongfang recognized at a glance what this strange machine was. Nova clearly noticed Dongfang entering right away. She lifted her head, brushed aside some disheveled hair, and stared at the casually dressed man. These days, she had been busy pushing the project forward without being noticed, which consumed a lot of her computational power. In her busy state, she surprisingly hadn't thought of Dongfang at all. But the moment she saw him, her heart felt like it was covered in grass. Longing surged like tides, making her realize how attractive Dongfang looked. His nose, eyes, eyebrows, lips, and black hair were all so captivating. I need to ask him if he missed me, otherwise, I would be at a disadvantage. Nova lost interest in the machine before her. She stepped out of the crowd and headed straight for Dongfang. What brings you here? It's been so many days since I last saw you. Did you miss me? She grabbed Dongfang's arm and shook it, then quietly asked, casting a glance at Huyang beside her, as if to assert her claim. Today I just had some time to come and see your progress, Dongfang coughed, pretending he hadn't heard Nova's second question. Oh, a hint of something indescribable flashed in Nova's eyes, but she quickly adjusted her demeanor and continued, you should see. With me here, how could the progress slow down? The overall structure of the spacecraft has been completely designed, and the simulation showed no issues. A couple of days ago, preparations were made to build a verification model. But after contacting the mechanical factory, it was found that they could not produce some special structural components and could only forge them separately, then weld them together. Other structures were not a problem, but for the spacecraft's outer armor, it must be forged in one piece to meet the requirements for ultra-high-speed flight. That's when you thought of the 3D forging and milling integrated printer. Of course, this kind of personalized custom structure is exactly what it is suited for. Therefore, I made extensive modifications and optimizations to the 3D metal printer purchased for the base. Now it integrates forging and milling, allowing all parts to be processed in one go, greatly saving on time costs. Nova proudly said, revealing a look that seemed to say, come and praise me. Oriental gave Nova a playful pat on the head, and Nova was delighted. Chapter 280. Everything is ready. Wow, I didn't expect Miss Gong to be so impressive, and a female scientist too. Huyang gently held onto Oriental's other arm, and when girls get bold, they often overshadow the boys. That's right. I have countless topics in common with the chairman that we could talk about endlessly. Nova tightened her grip, hugging Oriental's arm to her chest. Huyang also tightened her grip, but hesitated, feeling shy about hugging Oriental's arm too tightly. However, she didn't hold back with her words. Oh, you must have been busy these days. Look at your clothes, they're quite messy. They even have a bit of a smell. You should probably change. Really? Oh dear. Chairman, could you please get me a set of clothes? I can't leave here. Anyway, you know where my clothes are. KO. A decisive strike, Hu Yang retreated. As a young lady, this tactic hit right at the core, ending the argument in one blow. Well, I still have some things to do. You two chat for a while. I'll head out first. Oriental strategically retreated, not caring about escaping from the lab, as if running away, and headed back to the office without looking back. Upon entering, he locked the door, sat down, and turned on the display screen, doing everything in one go. This is too scary. Standing between the two, he felt a rush of tension, as if surrounded by blades and fierce energy. It was way more terrifying than the Pegasus spacecraft. In the future, such situations with two people should be avoided as much as possible, and if unavoidable, they must be in public places. Having made up his mind, Oriental finally turned his attention back to the computer on the desk. He needed to focus on research to calm himself down. Hu Yang's earlier comment indeed had some truth to it. On the screen, an object with a wider top and a narrower bottom was slowly rotating. It was somewhat similar to the engine Wang Hui had just demonstrated, but looked more refined. Oriental lightly tapped the keyboard, and in an instant, the rotating object was divided into several parts, continuously disassembling until all the structures became individual components, neatly arranged on the computer's display screen. Dongfang casually opened a detailed specification document, which included size data, required material specifications, and process requirements, all neatly labeled beside it. The familiar style and essence revealed that Dongfang had already completed the research and design work independently. This was his style, prepared for all contingencies. He would never leave things to chance. Even if Wang Hui and the others had no results, Dongfang could still ensure the project's smooth progress. This was also the original purpose of his training. After rechecking the dimensions of each component, the engine returned to its original state. It was time to test. He nodded in satisfaction and pressed the run button. The engine began to rotate slowly, then continuously accelerated until it was spinning so fast that it was barely visible to the naked eye. The simulation software emitted a buzzing sound, and brighter light gathered at the bottom of the engine. If someone were nearby, they would certainly notice that this was the light emitted when a UFO flew across the sky, colorful and exceptionally beautiful. Perfect. Dongfang pressed the keyboard, and the engine gradually came to a stop from its high-speed rotation. Xiao Nuo, generate the blueprint collection, save it first, and keep it private for now. Understood, master. Came its sweet voice from the desk speakers. Xiao Yu, send over the modeling and simulation data for the spacecraft as well. I want to test the overall operation of the spacecraft. Already sent, please check. Nova seemed busy. She didn't connect the video call but directly packaged and sent the information to Dongfang's computer desktop. It appeared that even when she was busy, she could always know what Dongfang was doing, of course, only if she wished to, as it required just a fraction of her computing power. Naturally, if Dongfang had special arrangements, that would be another matter. Dongfang got busy again. He needed to try fitting the engine into the spacecraft and simulate it once more. The appearance of the spacecraft sent by Nova was not what Dongfang originally envisioned. Instead, it had an unusual fan shape, and the engine was not integrated into the main body of the spacecraft. Instead, it was designed with two thick hulls supporting a circular cabin. How to describe it? It was like a fan-shaped spacecraft at the front, with two iron rods standing upright at the rear, connecting to a circular small cabin. Would such a structure work? Dongfang mumbled to himself, but he knew that since it was created by Nova, there couldn't be any mistakes. Let's give it a try. After a moment of self-talk, Dongfang immediately immersed himself in the task. The engine and the cabin did not completely match, so he had to readjust the dimensions to proceed with the simulation. Although it wasn't about redesigning an engine, the workload was naturally not too heavy. Given Dongfang's work efficiency, it was quite simple. Within 20 minutes, he completed the necessary adjustments. In the simulation software, a spacecraft was slowly rotating, displaying a full-scale 3D model. After pressing start, the tail of the spacecraft immediately emitted colorful beams of light. The spacecraft went from a standstill to flying in just 1 minute. Next came the smooth flight, whether through rain or strong winds. The spacecraft was operating well and in excellent condition. Not bad. The Eastern figure nodded silently. And now it was just a matter of waiting for the components to be produced for assembly verification. Originally, Eastern thought this process would be quick. The design was complete, and the materials were all ready. Even though the base was somewhat far from the company's location, there was a week's time, so it should certainly be able to start testing. However, what he didn't expect was that due to the spacecraft's design being quite different from the rockets previously produced, the production workshop could not perform the final assembly and needed to add some lifting and installation equipment before the final assembly could take place. This was also a consequence of lacking production experience. Of course, waiting was not an option. In the span of 10 days, Eastern completed the engine testing work ahead of schedule. With the support of graphene superconductors and the super-insulating material Stardust, the anti-gravity engine testing went surprisingly smoothly. Just one verification machine was able to completely nullify a 15-ton counterweight. After further optimization by Eastern, a new type of engine named Earth Level 1, capable of carrying 45 tons, was freshly produced. During this busy time for Eastern, Nova was also hard at work. The fully automated 3D metal printing machine passed the tests and officially began printing special components and the entire spacecraft. Due to the large size of the spacecraft, which was 18 meters tall and had a combined length of over 65 meters for the two cabins, Nova rebuilt a large production workshop specifically for the spacecraft's production. In short, during this period, everyone at the space base was incredibly busy, and Eastern was no exception. Every day he returned to the villa, quickly washed up, and went straight to sleep. The next morning, he hurried out the door, fully committed to his work. The result of this dedication was that it only took 45 days from project initiation to the completion of the first verification machine. On this day, after breakfast, Eastern and Nova, amidst the usual busyness, strolled leisurely toward the final assembly workshop. Chairman, all our work is complete. We are fully prepared, just waiting for the right moment. Indeed, the team has done a great job. Chapter 281. Boarding May 12th. Clear skies with a gentle breeze. The sky was as blue as a wash, with no clouds in sight, resembling a massive sapphire inverted above. The sunlight was warm, but after a while, it could become painfully hot. Eastern and Nova walked from the villa, and recently they had been so busy that they hadn't noticed the park had become lush with greenery and flowers blooming. After finishing his tasks, upon seeing this beautiful scene, Eastern decided to walk to the final assembly workshop. The scenery along the way was truly beautiful. And because Eastern paid great attention to the environmental construction of the base, many birds had taken up residence. As they walked along the sun-dappled path, Nova's cheerful voice reached his ears, accompanied by the crisp chirping of birds and the faint scent of flowers. For a moment, he felt that life was truly beautiful. Huyang was already standing at the entrance of the assembly workshop. Although she got up a bit later than usual, she took a transit vehicle. So she arrived ahead of Dongfang and Nova. Seeing Dongfang and Nova chatting and laughing as they approached, Huyang felt an inexplicable pang of sadness in her heart. However, some things cannot be controlled, so she quickly adjusted her mood and went to greet them. Chairman, everyone has been waiting for a long time. You finally made it, she said. Yes, I wanted to take a walk today, so I was a bit slow. Dongfang replied. Since everyone is eager, let's head inside. He nodded and was the first to enter the large door of the assembly workshop. A silver-white spaceship came into view first, its outer armor smooth as a mirror, even able to reflect human figures. Inside the workshop, many staff members were still busy with final preparations, cleaning the spaceship's exterior, checking equipment status, and charging the spaceship. The energy source used the third-generation graphene battery produced by the Materials Laboratory, which is compact in size and large in energy storage, fully capable of meeting the enormous energy demands required for superspeed rotation. Moreover, it took full advantage of the graphene battery's ultra-fast charging characteristics, allowing the battery to be charged while the engine was running. This meant that once charged, it could be used for a long time. Once the spaceship entered space, the energy consumption would be even lower in the absence of resistance. The charging was completed quickly. After just 2 minutes of waiting, the staff removed the charging interface from the spaceship and set the thick cable aside. Following that, a flat towing vehicle arrived, attached to the spaceship's landing gear, and pulled it out of the assembly workshop. In front of the workshop, there was still a large open space, and the towing vehicle came to a slow stop in the middle. Dongfang and the other two had just reached the entrance when they saw Yu Xinrui running over. Panting, Chairman, you arrived early. This person is getting older, and his body can't keep up. I'm late. After finally calming down, he spoke. You've worked hard during this time. Dongfang nodded, smiling. Isn't this just right? It's the least I can do. Otherwise, how could I justify the salary you give me? Through their recent interactions, Yu Xinrui had gained a deeper understanding of Dongfang, realizing that this big shot had an excellent character, disliked unnecessary formalities, and preferred to joke around as long as the work was done well. Old you, not bad, not bad. This is how a responsible person should be. When it's time to work, you dive into it wholeheartedly, and when it's time to rest, you fully commit to resting. I understand. I've found that adequate rest leads to higher work efficiency. I'll definitely correct my past mistakes, Yu Xinrui said, bashfully scratching his head, feeling a bit embarrassed that a younger person had to teach him at his age. That's good, Dongfang said with a satisfied expression as he turned back to look at the spaceship in the field. Yu Xinrui took a few steps back and gently touched Hu Yang's arm. Previously mentioned, just now I got a bit nervous and forgot to ask. You're the boss's assistant. Why not go and check? Oh dear, how could you forget such an important matter? Hu Yang pondered for a moment before quietly approaching Dongfang from behind. Boss, the spacecraft is ready, but we're still missing the most crucial factor for it to take off. Oh, Dongfang seemed surprised. What do you mean? I didn't realize we were missing anything. Well, this is a new type of spacecraft, the only one of its kind in the world. And no one knows how to operate it. Previously, I went with General Yu to the Space Training Center to inquire, and everyone said they would only dare to attempt a test flight after undergoing a training period. So, I think today's maiden flight will likely only be for basic verification. Hu Yang was also a bit worried, afraid of making Dongfang angry. So she explained the situation in detail. It's all right, I've made preparations. Look, isn't that someone coming? Dongfang chuckled, pointing to a figure in a black suit and sunglasses walking from a distance. Forget I said anything. Hu Yang stuck out her tongue and retreated back into the crowd. Chairman, hello. Shi Pengkuan reported for duty as ordered. His gaze was firm, and his voice exceptionally loud. Upon hearing this thunderous voice, Yu Xingrui and Hu Yang felt enlightened. They had long heard that the boss had a good working relationship with a confidential unit. And today they were witnessing it firsthand. No test pilot? Instantly, someone arrived to report for duty, regardless of whether they had piloted similar aircraft before. What a bold move. This is how a confidential unit should operate. All right, now everything is truly ready. Dongfang laughed heartily, stepping forward to gently press on the smooth exterior of the spacecraft. With a hissing sound, a square gap opened up, revealing a hatch that was 2 meters high and 12 meters wide. An automatic staircase descended, and soft light spilled from the platform. Dongfang stepped inside. Upon entering, there was a long corridor with hatches on both sides. Reaching the end of the corridor, the hatch opened automatically, revealing a massive space of about 30 square meters. The windows were small, but one could clearly see the conditions outside the spacecraft. Dongfang glanced over and saw Shi Pengkuan receiving a pressure suit from the staff, entering the assembly workshop. Below the windows were rows of monitors, which, unlike the various buttons found on vehicles from other regions, appeared exceptionally simple. A hint of satisfaction emerged on his face as Dongfang turned and exited the spacecraft. Dressed in a pressure suit, Shi Pengkuan was quietly waiting by the ship. Upon seeing Dongfang come down, he immediately spoke up. Shi Pengkuan had completed all preparations and requested to board the spacecraft for the test flight. You may board and await further instructions. Yes. After a powerful response, Shi Pengkuan boarded the spacecraft. Let us go to the control tower. Chapter 282. First flight in the command center above the space base. Dongfang entered with a group of people. By the large floor-to-ceiling windows, all staff members were in position. Upon seeing the group of leaders, the person in charge of the tower approached them. Chairman, Yu Suo, and all leaders, the test flight route has been reported and the staff are ready. We can proceed with the test flight at any time. Dongfang nodded slightly in acknowledgement and said, connect the spacecraft communications and prepare for the test flight. Understood. The person in charge put on the headset again and turned to walk towards the control console. Dongfang, along with Yu Xingrui and other senior executives, followed him to the front of the floor-to-ceiling windows and took their seats in the specially prepared chairs for viewing the flight. Each chair had a telescope fixed to the ground in front of it. Tower calling floating, tower calling. Just as they settled in, the voice of the tower's person in charge came through. Indeed, because of the great hopes placed on this verification machine, the staff wished for it to soar freely through the skies like its namesake. Therefore, they initiated a naming vote among all personnel. Eventually, Floating received an impressive 98 of the votes, becoming the name of the spacecraft. Floating is ready, preparing for launch, said Shi Pengkuan's calm voice through the loudspeaker. You can launch, follow the designated flight path, and ascend to 2,000 meters, then maintain altitude. Floating received. All personnel in the open area in front of the assembly workshop moved away. As Shi Pengkuan pressed the start button, 6 beams of colorful light shot out from the rear of the spacecraft. In the next second, the landing gear retracted, and the spacecraft floated lightly into the air. Master Lu, it's flying up, it really is flying, shouted a young man who was leaning against the glass of the assembly workshop. I can see it, replied Master Lu. Next to the young man, a group of technicians in uniforms from the company were also watching intently. Are you not excited, Master? We made this with our own hands. Of course I'm excited, but it's such an important moment. It's best to observe quietly and not disturb others. Oh, I really want to record a video to post on TikTok. It's a pity about the company's regulations. Just keep it in mind. Suddenly, Master Lu rubbed his eyes and realized the spacecraft had vanished. It's up in the sky. Someone pointed, noticing the reflection of light in the air. The flying of the anti-gravity spacecraft is fundamentally different from that of airplanes and similar vehicles. It hovered about 10 meters above the ground for over 10 seconds. Shi Pengkuan pulled up the control stick, and the light at the rear of the spacecraft concentrated, taking less than a second. The floating had already ascended to a height of 2,000 meters, hovering in midair. This completely defied the known laws of physics. Of course, this was also the inherent capability of the anti-gravity spacecraft. Calling the control tower, the craft has reached the designated altitude and is hovering. Please issue instructions. The control tower personnel were at a loss. They had no experience with such a flying vehicle. Typically, during verification, high-speed flight and maneuvers were meaningless here. Thus, he genuinely did not know what instructions to issue next. Please continue to ascend to 10,000 and maintain altitude. Report the spacecraft's operating status. After a long consideration, he issued the command again. The craft acknowledged, reached 10,000 and hovering. All indicators normal, status excellent. The voice of the pilot remained devoid of any emotion. Inside the control tower, excitement erupted. It took just 1 second to go from 2,000 to 10,000. Was this still a flying vehicle? How fast could it fly in space? Could it exceed the speed of light? Everyone felt an overwhelming excitement, as if they had grown wings. They disregarded everything else and eagerly grabbed their telescopes to locate the spacecraft. The cloudless sky provided great convenience for their observation. The spacecraft reflected sunlight, making it easy for them to spot it. Of course, its large size also contributed to this ease. All right, maintain altitude and proceed 1,000 along the flight path. The control tower personnel relaxed. Since there was no harm, they decided to move it around a bit. In the high altitude, the spacecraft began its maneuvers. Darting forward and backward, up and down. It flew with great delight, and each movement felt like teleportation. As soon as the command was given, it could appear at the designated target in the next second, with no delays whatsoever. Further increase engine speed. Report the status of the permanent magnet motor after 5 seconds of overclocking. Since this was a verification, a comprehensive inspection of the spacecraft was necessary. After completing the maneuver tests, the control tower personnel began checking various data on the craft. Engine temperature 120 degrees Celsius, the rest normal, battery consumption increasing rapidly. Currently at 95, dropping quickly, 9390. Altitude 3,000. Disable overclocking, reduced to 200 and maintain. Received, engine temperature returned to 65 degrees Celsius. The battery is recharging. Currently at 92, expected to be fully charged in 10 seconds. Please maintain altitude and wait for further instructions. Before the control tower personnel could issue the next command, a colleague took the communicator, patting him on the shoulder to signal him to wait a moment. Chairman, I think we can't test the limits of the craft right now. Should we have it return home and arrange for the next steps later? He expressed some concern. Such a rough operation made him fear that an accident could harm the pilot, which would be difficult to explain to the confidentiality unit. Old you, you're overthinking it. Pass me the headset, I'll give it a try. But what if something happens to the pilot? He was hesitant. Don't worry. This spacecraft is specifically designed for long-distance space travel. The forces inside the planet won't pose any danger at all. After Dongfang took the headset, he nodded to Sheng Rui and the somewhat nervous tower manager. Floating Traveler, continue to ascend to maintain near-Earth orbit. Floating Traveler understood. Without a moment of hesitation, Shi Pengkuan immediately replied to him. Sheng Rui raised his hand slightly, but ultimately said nothing. Everything that needed to be said had been said. 3 minutes later, Shi Pengkuan's voice re-emerged. We have reached the designated position, at nearly 700 kilometers per minute speed. Sheng Rui's eyes widened in disbelief. Such speed. No wonder the chairman said the internal strength of the planet was insufficient. Please return. The test is complete. Seeing everyone except Nova with their jaws dropped, Dongfang knew that there was no way to conduct more radical tests. Otherwise, people might accuse him of doing it on purpose. Another round of telescope adjustments ensued, drawing everyone's attention back to the sky. Even though they couldn't see anything now, they didn't want to miss this historic moment. I see it. Where? I can't find it. Hurry up and say it. I see it too. Oh no, it's already landed. Successful return. The next moment, Shi Pengkuan's voice rang out in the tower. We did it. We succeeded. Sheng Rui could no longer contain his excitement and was the first to shout out. Chapter 283 Ecosystem in the open space outside the assembly workshop. Although the sun had risen high, sweat dripped down everyone's faces like beads. Yet no one stepped back. They all maintained a strange posture. One hand touching the smooth surface of the spacecraft while the other hand curled up, lightly tapping with a knuckle. They continuously made a clicking sound. Wow. Such an amazing aircraft was made so easily. This was the only thought everyone had at that moment. They originally thought the so-called witnesses in the reports were nonsense. But it turned out they were the ones who were ignorant, taking their lack of knowledge for granted. They basked in their achievements, pointing at others and saying, "Look at that fool. How could it possibly fly?" Back to the outside of the assembly workshop in the spacecraft's cockpit. The air conditioning worked remarkably well, even impressively so. Sheng Rui, having experienced the heat outside and sweating profusely, was greeted by a rush of cold air upon entering the cockpit, causing him to shiver involuntarily. In fact, he was very familiar with the cockpit. He should say he was familiar with all its components. During the assembly process, all his energy was focused on the spacecraft's assembly techniques and progress. Even after the final assembly was completed, He only glanced at it hurriedly before diving into the assembly of other parts. It was no exaggeration to say this was his first time carefully examining the cockpit's condition. He looked around. At the very front of the cockpit, there was a row of small windows, each only about 50 centimeters square. Due to limited light sources, all the lighting facilities in the cockpit were turned on. Soft light shone on the dark monitor, revealing a dreamlike scene. It was something he had seen countless times in his dreams. At this moment, he couldn't care less about the chairman from the east. He quickly took a few steps and pounced on the control panel, gently touching the pilot's seat and the console as if caressing a loved one. He murmured to himself, "Good, really good," completely forgetting that he was supposed to retrieve the black box to prepare for the spaceship's modifications. With this big guy, establishing a base on the moon should be no problem. You're right. Our next step is to establish a lunar base. The Eastern chairman took over the conversation and sat in the pilot's seat. Really? Yu Qingrui straightened up suddenly, his eyes filled with joy. This is what we space people should be doing. But we haven't done any technical preparations. It's not too late to start now. Give me 1 year. And I will definitely get it off the ground and set up a home on the moon. Yu Qingrui was extremely excited, pacing back and forth in the cockpit while raising his arm to activate the wristband provided by the company. The screen lit up on his forearm as he quickly started tapping on it. Regarding the project application for establishing a forward base on the moon. Old Yu, come sit for a moment. I have plans for this. The chairman smiled at him and gestured to the seat beside him. Hey, chairman, are you worried about me? I guarantee that in just 10 months, no, 9 months, I can complete the preparations. With a bit of uncertainty in his heart, Yu Qingrui only placed half of his bottom on the seat, thumping his chest as he spoke. It seemed he was indeed a bit anxious. I'm not worried about you. There are no issues with the spaceship here. Our current challenge lies in establishing the base. First, the personnel stationed there need to live on the moon long-term to conduct research. Most importantly, a comfortable living environment is essential. You need to ensure they can survive first. You specialize in aircraft, so you might be somewhat lacking in lunar base matters. Of course, I believe you can figure it out quickly. But this does not align with the group's development plan, so I have other arrangements for you. All right. Although somewhat reluctant, he knew he couldn't change the big boss's decision. So he agreed. What can I do? Do you remember when I pulled some people from the team before? Of course. How could I forget? It hasn't been long. Follow up on their project. Ecosystems, they only understand how to establish an ecological circle. Gravity systems and atmospheric pressure maintenance systems are areas they are not good at. What I need is a complete ecosystem. If we can ensure 100 simulation of the blue planet's ecosystem, it must at least be above 90. Can you accomplish this task? The Eastern chairman squinted slightly, his expression a mix of a smile and something more complex. I can do it. Yu Qingrui stood up straight, even bouncing up from his chair. Don't get excited, Lao Yu. I believe in you. So let's agree on this. You will organize everyone to push the project forward. Okay. I'm going right now. After saying this, Yu Qingrui left the cockpit without looking back and rushed toward the laboratory, completely forgetting to take the black box they had initially agreed upon. Sighing, Dongfang lifted and then lowered his head. This was his tactic to motivate Yu Qingrui, the tech fanatic, to fully devote himself to the research and development of the ecosystem. Given his extensive experience in spacecraft ecosystem design, this was much more challenging compared to the base systems. It made sense. If he could manage it in such a small spacecraft, it would be even easier in a base. Dongfang was certainly making the best use of everyone's talents. After Yu Qingrui left, staff members boarded the spacecraft again to retrieve the black box. They simply could not wait for this big shot and dared not rush him. So they had to come on their own. Of course, there was some grumbling, but what did that have to do with the busy Yu Qingrui? Shanglin, how's your progress? As soon as he entered the laboratory, a wave of heat hit him, almost like stepping into a steamer. Pretty good. The complete ecosystem has been initially established. However, to ensure we produce enough oxygen, we've cultivated a massive amount of algae, but its suitable temperature is between 25 to 40 degrees Celsius. Therefore, outside the water system, we've also planted a lot of tropical plants. This means we have enough oxygen, but the temperature is hard to bring down. No wonder it's so hot. Yu Qingrui chuckled. These environmental engineers were a bit too naive. They weren't really trying to recreate a perfect ecosystem. Moreover, if humans lived inside, it would certainly impact the ecosystem, making it impossible to maintain the set conditions. What would be the point of the ecosystem then? Kid, your way of thinking is too rigid. The chairman has said it's an ecosystem. Since it's a system, we can definitely use instruments to help us achieve dynamic balance. Huh? Shang Lin's eyes widened in surprise. Chapter 284. Dramatic change. Chairman, you've assigned all the tasks. What am I supposed to do? I'm so bored. Once everyone left the cockpit, Nova immediately sat beside Dongfang. She stretched out her 2 delicate fingers and gently tugged at Dongfang's short sleeve, her face full of a flattering expression. How about letting Lao Yu take a break, and I take charge of the project? Is it that boring? Don't worry. You have other things to do. I won't let you be idle. Dongfang chuckled and reached out to give her a playful pat on the head. Nova immediately showed a look of delight on her face. It was a surefire way to cheer her up. Then tell me, what do you want me to do? Harriman's side is ready. I plan to have you lead the bionic robot army into the Pegasus system to explore. Dongfang stated clearly, obviously having considered this beforehand. Why? Harriman can go back alone. I want to stay by your side. I don't want that. My first task is to ensure your safety. Everything else comes second. Nova surprisingly rejected Dongfang for the first time, which has never happened before. I think you were about to follow Harriman when Dongfang started to speak and then stopped, refusing? This probably highlights the difference between artificial intelligence and sentient beings. Dongfang suddenly felt a bit dazed. Nova should now be considered a human. It turns out that I had subconsciously never regarded her as one. It was my mistake. I hadn't taken her feelings into account. This was unexpected for Nova. Just a single refusal led to a shift in Dongfang's perspective. I should engage in equal conversation with her and seek her consent before making decisions that involve her. If at this moment, Nova could understand Dongfang's thoughts, she would surely be jumping with joy. But that's impossible. She is only curious about why the captain stopped halfway through speaking. Would Harriman be fine on his own? What do you think? She asked cautiously, fearing that Dongfang might actually send her to Pegasus. Haha, Xiaoyu, don't throw a tantrum. Since Dongfang has genuinely recognized Nova as a human in his heart, he will naturally seek her consent. The crew of the Harriman ship will be entirely replaced with bionic robots to accompany him. But the intelligence level of the bionic robots is still somewhat lower. I fear that they might reveal flaws after spending a long time with familiar life forms, which could lead to the entire plan failing. Therefore, I want you to personally go to Pegasus and control all the robots in real time to ensure the plan goes off without a hitch. Oh, that doesn't seem too difficult. With my computing power, I only need to allocate 01 to complete all tasks, but I could do it without going. Nova's expression relaxed as she gently shook her hair. There would be some delay over such a long distance, right? Dongfang shook his head. Although communication on Dihuan Star uses quantum entanglement to transmit signals, the distance of several light years will inevitably introduce some delay. No, that's not the case. The characteristic of quantum communication is that when one party changes, the other party receives the information immediately. This communication method breaks the limitations of space and does not introduce delays at all. Nova stopped her movements and gently shook her head. I'm not referring to that kind of delay. I'm talking about the response speed of the robots. Even if you send commands to them, there will always be a slight delay in executing those commands. In normal human interactions, it may feel like the person is a beat slow. If just one or two do this, it's fine. But if all the robots exhibit this behavior, wouldn't it raise their alertness? Oh, I see. That is indeed a problem. If, and I mean if, you go to Pegasus and use direct control, I think this situation can be avoided, right? Of course. My computing power can control 1,000,000 such robots simultaneously, allowing for real-time control with no delay at all. Nova tilted her head slightly, wearing a proud expression. Of course I know that. Actually, there is another purpose. I want you to go to Pegasus and conduct an in-depth investigation and information gathering on their civilization. There is an old saying in our country, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never lose a battle. Only with sufficient understanding can we be well prepared. I don't trust others. Dongfang reached out to pat Nova's head again. Is that so? But what about your safety? Nova was a bit shaken. This was the first time Dongfang spoke without a commanding tone, but she still felt uneasy about Dongfang's safety. This was also an important reason for her to stay close to Dongfang. Don't worry about my safety. As long as Harriman's plan is successfully completed and there are no worries left, you can return. During your absence, I will diligently work on research at the company. I have to personally oversee the lunar base. After all, no one else has the experience. We can't afford to be careless. If something goes wrong, it could cost the astronauts their lives. All right, I promise you, I'll be back in no more than a month. If Harriman can't deal with those old men in that time, then he won't be of any use to us. We still have the first heir in hand. Trusting his words will yield better results. Okay, I agree. When you go to Pegasus, you must also pay attention to your safety. If anything happens, get out immediately. Don't worry, don't worry. Nova waved her hand and left. Dongfang kept his promise to Nova and stayed at the space base every day, starting the design work for the lunar base, from the foundation of the building to the design of various functional areas. He didn't overlook anything. From daily necessities like food, clothing, and shelter, electricity, control systems, to ensuring safety with external shielding. During this time, his routine involved moving from the villa to the office, leaving everything else behind, completely ignoring the outside world. One day, as usual, he left the villa, had breakfast, and headed to the office. Captain, Nova calling, red alert. Red alert. Nova suddenly popped up on the screen, looking entirely like a being from Pegasus. If it weren't for the unchanged voice, Dongfang might have thought it was a communication from Harriman. What is going on? Dongfang slowly pushed open the office door and sat down. The robots from the White House have reported that the underground lizards, after a long struggle, have gradually figured out the strengths and weaknesses of the flag country. They have launched a large-scale attack, and the flag country is now retreating under heavy pressure. Harriman is preparing to launch radiation weapons. In 5 to 10 minutes, a large-scale unconventional weapon will be launched, which will affect the entire blue planet. Please return to the spaceship immediately to ensure your safety. I have already made arrangements for your uncle and aunt. Nova spoke rapidly, almost with a sense of urgency. I'm on my way back. Please prioritize returning to the Far Side base. But what about my employees? What should the ordinary people of a certain country do? Dongfang stood up anxiously, not leaving immediately, but thinking of countless relatives and compatriots. Is this old fool crazy? He was indeed acting a bit irrationally. Let me think of a solution. Recently, a significant number of spacecraft have been stored at the lunar base, so it is possible to protect the country from being affected. So what are we waiting for? Your will is my direction forward. Chapter 285. News. Meanwhile, deep in the space of the lunar base, faint lights were flickering continuously, yet upon closer inspection, it appeared to be pitch black, with endless darkness being the eternal theme of space. At this moment, only Dongfang and a captured intelligent life form from the Pegasus star remained at the lunar base. When the lights flickered, they felt the ground beneath them tremble slightly. Having often stayed at the spacecraft dock for supplies, they immediately sensed something unusual. This was the impact caused by a large number of spacecraft passing by and the gravitational interactions involved. They stared blankly at the sky, unable to imagine how many spacecraft would have to pass by such a large moon to cause such changes. Just like their previous experiences, even though they could see nothing, they could still be certain that a massive number of spacecraft had just flown past not far from the planet. Great. The foreman of the mining team stared at the starry sky, murmuring to himself. He felt a sense of relief that he hadn't had time to do anything to the blue planet at that moment. Otherwise, he would definitely be left with nothing. Foreman, what are you talking about? There are so many spacecraft that even the planet's gravity has been affected. Are they about to go to war? With so many spacecraft, who can withstand this? Just focus on your work and stop guessing. We are not at home now. Less talk and more action. Got it. The laborer who asked the question glanced around, and upon seeing the unmanned flying devices floating and moving in midair, quickly lowered his head, wielding his tools to start mining the ice underground with all his might. At this time, the flag country had already been reduced to scorched earth. They had never anticipated that the number of lizard beings would reach such a terrifying level. Currently, the flag country had a population of 29 billion humans. But over 100 million lizard beings had arrived. Of course, due to logistical issues, only about 50 million could participate in direct combat. However, this number exceeded 35 times the active military personnel of the flag country, which had 1 million soldiers. In front of the lizard army, these soldiers were like building blocks, easily swept away without a trace. Conventional weapons were no different from fire sticks against the physically superior lizard beings. The layered defenses built by countless people were encircled by the lizard beings from both sides, collapsing like a sandcastle on the beach with a single wave. The lizard beings regrouped into 5 battalions, heading straight for the location of the presidential office, bulldozing through the brain of the flag country. Let us rewind time to 3 hours earlier, at the presidential office of the flag country. I want to see this group of trash dead, all dead. They must not be allowed to advance any further. The leader roared in the office, pacing back and forth, veins bulging on his neck, eyes wide with anger. His hair, usually neatly combed, was now a disheveled mess, flying around as he shook his head. Sir, have you considered the implications of launching a nuclear strike? What will happen to our people if we really go through with it? After all, she is a woman, and her heart hasn't turned completely cold. The people. Even without launching nuclear weapons, can they survive where the lizard people tread? If we let them get any closer, we're finished. If we eliminate those damned creatures, we might save half of our population, right? But what comes after? How will people produce? There will be massive radiation. She still had some concerns. Let us cross that bridge when we come to it. The leader seemed exhausted, slumping into a chair. But there is still a problem. If the yield is too small, we might not wipe out all the lizard people, but if it's too large, the whole planet could be affected. Can we really survive that? And with so many nuclear weapons detonating simultaneously, could it lead to the destruction of the planet itself? She walked over and began to massage his head. You're overthinking it. Currently, the total number of operational nuclear weapons on the planet is only about 750. Do you know how many have been used for tests by all the countries combined? At least over 1,000. Do you think there has been any change? As long as we all go underground, everyone will be fine. Under her massage, he finally calmed down. Inform the Air Force to prepare all nuclear weapons for launch. Waiting for the President's order to launch is needed. Also, hold a national press conference to announce a red alert, instructing all residents to go underground. In 2 hours, we will launch the nuclear weapons. Understood, I'll prepare immediately. She nodded and left the room. He slumped back in his chair, feeling drained, muttering to himself. We've finally come to this point. Although I was prepared in my heart, making such a decision isn't what I truly desire. Perhaps I am the worst president since the founding of the nation. Huh, what do you mean it's not what you truly desire? Just looking for an excuse for your own sins. This is the most disgusting and morally bankrupt type of person on the planet. Branding themselves as the elite of high society, mingling among celebrities and wealthy tycoons, portraying themselves as the trash of politics. Dear audience and citizens, please allow me to share some distressing news with a heavy heart. Whatever you are doing, please put everything down and listen carefully, as the information I am about to share could save your life. We have lost the battle against the reptilians. All defense lines have been breached. Of course, I believe some of you may already be aware of this, but that is not the main point. Their army is advancing towards the presidential palace, with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of millions, of reptilians swarming across our territory like locusts. Perhaps in the next moment, this group will break down your door and harm you and your family brutally. To stop them, the president has signed the highest order. In 2 hours, we will launch a large-scale strike to eliminate these creatures. Therefore, dear citizens, please leave your warm homes immediately and head to the nearest underground facilities to avoid being accidentally harmed, and wait there for further instructions. You may only return above ground once the presidential palace issues the order. Rest assured, there are ample supplies to ensure everyone's normal living conditions. Next, I will announce the specific locations of the underground facilities, and I urge everyone to head there immediately. At this moment, all devices across the nation began to continuously broadcast this message without interruption. Everyone was shocked by the news, and the city fell into a deathly silence. Soon after, cries and screams filled the air. People began to flee frantically towards the nearest underground facilities. Chapter 286. Nuclear explosion. All nations on the planet received the information immediately, except for those already destroyed, such as the South American country where the Swallow Cave is located, along with its neighboring countries. Subsequently, all devices capable of receiving broadcasts and video signals began to loop the message nonstop. Air raid sirens sounded over all human cities, seemingly reminding people to quickly evacuate to safety. In just 5 minutes, over 1 million traffic accidents occurred across the planet, and social order collapsed in an instant. Some desperate individuals resorted to looting in a frenzy, expressing their last moments of madness. This was not the end of the world, but it felt worse than one. However, there was an exception, the awakened Eastern Lion. This nation did not issue a message immediately, but instead mobilized all its resources to organize the masses to head towards the nearest defense facilities. At that moment, their preparations to counter the underground constructions built by the other nation proved to be immensely effective. Everything appeared so orderly and systematic. Unfortunately, time was too short for a country with a vast population. Countless people were still waiting to enter the underground facilities when the time of 1 hour and 50 minutes was about to expire. Among them were the brave citizens, who stayed behind to maintain order and ensure a smooth passage for the crowd, prioritizing the safety of the masses. Commander, we don't have much time left. The designated time has arrived. A young soldier, only 19 years old and having just joined the unit for less than a year, dragged his exhausted body to the side of his commander. Everyone has tried their best. The commander's voice was faint, worn out from shouting, but he gathered all his strength to speak to the young soldier. Quick, tell everyone to lie down, arms on the ground, chest and abdomen off the ground. Open your mouth, cover your ears, and if there are any vibrations, absolutely do not breathe. Hurry, be quick. Understood, Commander, I will inform them right away. The young soldier ran off, and the commander picked up the loudspeaker at his feet, starting to shout loudly. The crowd, like a massive wave, quickly lay flat on the ground. Your Excellency, the time has come. You should issue the order. Hagos and Biden were no longer in the White House office. They had entered a specially built shelter for the president an hour earlier, escorted by black security personnel. The shelter was well-equipped and could still communicate with the outside world at any time. Biden glanced at the large screen ahead. It displayed images of the charging reptilians. They surged forward like a black tide, their shouts echoing across the sky. He could even see the fangs in the reptilians' mouths through the high-definition camera. Suddenly, a reptilian charged forward, and the screen went black. He knew that the high-definition camera had been destroyed. Without hesitation, he took a briefcase handed to him by a soldier and opened it. Grabbing the landline phone inside, he said, "Authorize. In 2 minutes, launch 1000 hydrogen bombs. Hit them hard. We must eliminate that group completely in one go." Understood. 2-minute countdown. A slightly fatigued voice came through the microphone before the call ended. The timer in the briefcase immediately started counting down. The shelter fell into silence, with only the ticking of the timer echoing in the hall. Everyone silently counted down in their hearts. The timer's numbers decreased steadily until it reached 0. All soldiers, halt your advance and rest in place. On a patch of open land at the northern edge of a city in Kentucky, the leader of the reptilian army issued the command. After a long march, the reptilians were almost out of stamina, so to maintain their combat effectiveness, they were ordered to rest in place. Although the reptilians had low intelligence, their execution was remarkably precise, adhering strictly to commands. Following the commander's order, all reptilians immediately slowed down, taking less than 5 seconds to come to a complete stop. This physical capability and discipline were indeed chilling. No wonder even the powerful army of the flag-bearing nation was no match for them. They were simply not on the same scale. At this moment, the entire reptilian army stopped and began to regroup, preparing to eat and rest. What was that? A lizard man, busy cleaning its weapon, spotted a flicker of light in the sky. It was coming from the horizon at an extremely high speed. Curiously, the lizard man nudged its comrade and asked, "Looks like some kind of projectile from those humans. Not very powerful, just a loud noise. I need to report this quickly. Captain, Captain, the humans launched that thing again. We need to move aside. Spread out immediately." The captain shouted as he noticed the light in the sky. With a loud roar, all the lizard men turned and ran towards the city. They knew that such loud projectiles usually didn't target urban areas. However, even with their superior physical condition, they couldn't outrun a missile. The main group barely made it 50 meters when the missile struck the ground. With a thunderous explosion, a mushroom cloud rose into the air, followed by a second, third, and fourth. A massive shockwave followed, lifting all the lizard men near the mushroom cloud into the air, turning them into dust, swept away by the force of the blast. What's different from before? The airborne lizard man captain lamented before darkness enveloped him, and he lost consciousness. At the same time, in various locations where lizard men gathered, including regions in North Carolina and Tennessee, the deafening sound echoed simultaneously. Everything within a 35-kilometer radius of the mushroom cloud was reduced to powder, not to mention the lizard men. It must be said that a nuclear explosion at the right time and place had a significant effect, with over 95 of the lizard men turning to nothingness and merging with the earth within a minute. After a long while, as the aftershocks subsided, countless particles flew into the air, and suddenly, day turned to night. The traces of human civilization seemed to have been erased, revealing the land in its most primitive state. Hell has returned to the world. Captain, the nuclear explosion has ended. All spacecraft have reached their designated points and deployed shields. The nation remains unaffected. However, a month later, the dust from the nuclear explosion would spread globally, and by then, even the nation would not be able to avoid the impact. Nova appeared in the eastern view. Nova, you did well. Have there been any casualties reported? Statistics are being compiled. Please hold on. Chapter 287. You go first. A young soldier lay beside his squad leader, his posture impeccable, a testament to his professional training. Yet, even with his physical prowess, maintaining this position for long was becoming unbearable. He quietly lowered his right hand and glanced at his wrist. 330 seconds. Why hasn't the anticipated tremor arrived? Squad leader, it's been a while. And there is still no sign of anything happening? The young soldier, unable to contain himself, crawled a bit closer to the squad leader. Before the squad leader could respond, he exclaimed, "Oh, I'm so exhausted. Yeah, maybe there's really nothing going on." The crowd lying down could hardly endure it any longer. As soon as they heard the young soldier speak, they immediately began to shout along. This action seemed simple, but for untrained ordinary people, it was nearly impossible to hold on. If it weren't for their determination, they would have collapsed on the ground long ago. It had been about half an hour. The old man truly couldn't hold on anymore. A grandpa, his face flushed and sweat streaming down like rain, spoke up. Then he struggled to turn over and sat down heavily on the ground, gasping for breath. After reaching a certain age, he couldn't handle such intense activity. Even dancing in the square, he couldn't last for more than 20 minutes. As for other matters, he had experienced enough in his life, so a day or two didn't matter. As soon as the old man finished speaking, those lying on the ground began to sit up one by one. It seemed like nothing was wrong, so they all decided to take a rest and let everyone go back to work. The squad leader also sat up and said to his comrades lying beside him, since nothing had happened, there was naturally no need to stay down, otherwise, it would look a bit odd. Following orders is a characteristic of military personnel. As soon as the squad leader's words fell, they immediately scrambled up from the ground, ignoring the dirt on their bodies, and grabbed the loudspeaker to disperse. The crowd once again moved towards the entrance of the underground facility, and time seemed to become more abundant. In a large mountain in the inland region, this was the dividing line between the north and south of the territory. Within the Q Mountain Range, known for its rugged terrain, the highest officials of the country had just arrived at the entrance of the base deep in the mountains. It was still crowded with countless people queuing to enter. A black red flag car made no sound as it stopped at the end of the line. An elderly man, familiar to everyone in the country, stepped out of the car. His hair was already graying at the temples, and the whites of his eyes were somewhat red, seemingly indicating exhaustion, making it difficult for him to even walk. At that moment, on the other side of the car door, two young individuals ran down. They stood on either side of the old man, each linking their arms with him. Take it slow. You haven't slept for 2 days. Can your body handle it? It's nothing. Back in the day when I was in the South, there was so much work to do that staying up late was common. This is nothing to worry about. The old man chuckled and slowly took steps toward the end of the line, seemingly preparing to queue up. Before he could walk 2 meters, more black red flag cars stopped behind him. They lined up neatly by the roadside, and one by one, similarly aged elderly individuals got out of the cars. Haha, you arrived before me. A familiar face appeared behind the old man. If someone from the east were here, they would instantly recognize him as Mr. Zhao, the grandfather of Zhao Jinyu. Mr. Zhao, you've also arrived. Why did you come so slowly? Haha, I'm old. The winding mountain roads made me feel like I was going to throw up, so I asked the driver to go slowly. Yes. A group of elderly men began to respond. It's okay to go slowly, as long as everyone arrives. The joy on their faces was impossible to hide. Following your instructions. Everything has been arranged properly. We might be the last group to enter the facility, but we have fulfilled our mission. That's what we should do. Everyone laughed heartily together. This laughter startled the crowd waiting ahead. They turned to look, their faces filled with shock. Aren't these elderly men the ones frequently seen in the news? They haven't entered the underground facility yet. In that moment, their eyes turned red, recalling the person who worked tirelessly for the country. One of them hesitantly spoke up. Is it really you? The elder heard the call of the crowd and immediately turned his head. It's me. Hello there, young comrade. Why are you at the back? It's so dangerous outside. The young man's voice trembled as he excitedly reached out his hand, tightly grasping the elder's. I should be behind you. Only when you are safe can I feel at ease. No, you are our backbone. Only when you are safe can we all be at ease. You are the only one who can lead us back to a happy life. I am willing to give up my spot for you. You should go in first. Yes, we all want you to go in first. The crowd stood up in agreement, and as soon as they finished speaking, everyone stepped back in unison, creating a straight passageway for the elders. The young man even pushed the elder in front of him without hesitation. At that moment, silence spoke volumes. Ultimately, the elders could not refuse the crowd's enthusiasm and were almost lifted into the underground facility. Even though they had weathered many storms, tears still welled up in their eyes at that moment. It was worth it, truly worth it. I would willingly give everything for them. Old Zhao's voice rang out in the conference room. It turned out the elders didn't care about resting at all. They had arrived promptly to prepare for an in-depth discussion on the follow-up measures for the incident. Yes, Old Zhao finally said something sensible. Who would have thought you could speak so eloquently? The familiar voice of their old rival, Old Wang, echoed, causing everyone to chuckle. The previously tense and heavy atmosphere was instantly lifted. Old Zhao, Old Wang, you both are pillars of the nation. You can't bicker anymore. He took the lead in conversation, worried that the two elders, with a combined age nearing 200, might say something inappropriate. It's fine under normal circumstances, but in such an urgent situation. The fewer issues we have, the better. Got it. I'm clear-headed, Old Zhao replied with a smile, having long filtered out Old Wang's words to avoid getting upset. Now, back to the main topic. The bases have basically completed the casualty statistics. Aside from a few minor injuries from falls, our people have suffered no significant harm. I find it hard to understand why everything in the country is so calm. Even the coastal cities have not experienced a tsunami. But the coastal cities of our neighboring country are almost completely destroyed. An elderly person revealed this shocking news, leaving the others in the meeting stunned into silence, creating a strange quiet in the room. Chapter 288 Great Battle Captain. The damage assessment is complete. The specifics are as follows. 25 people sprained their ankles from running too fast, and 124 people suffered sudden cardiovascular incidents due to excitement caused by their old age. There are no other injuries. End of report. At this moment, Dongfang was in a cabin of a battleship, sitting across from 3 young people, his parents and grandmother. They were still a bit dazed. Originally, they had planned a trip after Dongfang mentioned going to the desert base. They had just set out in a newly launched luxury RV from a company, and 2.5 hours ago, they had arrived at the northernmost point of their homeland, a vast and desolate grassland. The reason for coming here was simple. Several elderly individuals, unexpectedly sporting youthful appearances. While it might not raise eyebrows in casual situations, at certain scenic spots where identification was required for entry, staff repeatedly verified the authenticity of their documents. As a result, other waiting tourists became aware of their circumstances, filled with suspicion and curiosity, and they successfully attracted everyone's attention, even overshadowing the beautiful scenery. Thus, after visiting a scenic area once, the 3 elderly individuals were reluctant to return to such places. Consequently, Dongfang quietly obtained an A-class driver's license. And as soon as the RV was launched, He took his wife on a self-driving trip. With a satellite receiver installed on the roof, they could still surf the internet, even in the remote grasslands. As expected, the vehicle's multimedia system immediately received an alert from the authorities. In the next moment, Dongfang's father panicked, realizing they were far from the city and wondering what underground facilities could be nearby. However, Dongfang maintained a calm demeanor, gripping the steering wheel and driving at full speed back to where they came from. Unfortunately, time was short, even with the vehicle speeding at top speed. After 2.5 hours, they were still over 100 kilometers away from the nearest underground facility entrance. Mom. Dear, we might not make it today, Dongfang said with a bitter smile as he parked the car. Before either could respond, they suddenly found themselves on a metal platform. Before they could comprehend the situation, everything went dark. When they saw light again, they discovered that their son was sitting across from them, smiling at them. Fanger, you also came down? Dongfang asked uncertainly, realizing that no one had escaped this disaster, and the whole family had ended up together in the underworld. Forget it. Anyway, our family has reunited. But shouldn't you be at the base? It shouldn't take so long to get to the underground. Dad, what are you talking about? What do you mean by down and underground? I'm so confused. Dongfang handed over a cup of water, completely puzzled. Hey, wasn't there news of a major disaster? We were too far from the underground works, and ultimately couldn't reach the entrance. And then the three of us didn't know anything anymore. Isn't that like being dead? After Dongyan finished speaking, she pinched herself hard. Look, it doesn't even hurt. Dad, you misunderstood. We're not dead. This is a spaceship. To be precise, it's my spaceship. A spaceship? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. The three of them were stunned. Just then, Nova connected the communication with Dongfang, chattering away about the damage report. Son, your company has become so powerful already. You can actually build a spaceship. So does that mean we're in space now? No way, I want to see what space is really like. After a brief silence, Dongyan was the first to regain her composure. Once the danger was gone, curiosity kicked in. It's really no surprise that they're just like two peas in a pod. Dad, we're not in space. You should check on Grandma and Mom too. They haven't recovered yet. Mind your own business. I just got so excited that I forgot. Dongyan felt a tightness in her chest and quietly glanced at her still dazed wife before getting busy. Xiaoyu, what has the data? Dongfang reconnected the communication. Has the monitoring system in the underground works been installed and operational so quickly? Haha, how could that be? You should see for yourself. Nova disappeared, and the scene in the underground conference room appeared before Dongfang's eyes. The chief, Old Zhao, and the country's leaders were gathered around a super large round table. Although our losses are minimal, the situation captured by the high-definition satellite is far from optimistic. The large screen in front of the round table lit up, displaying a photograph. At first glance, one could only see two things: pure white clouds and large areas of rolling yellowish soil below. This is the massive nuclear fallout produced by the hydrogen bomb explosion, spreading into the atmosphere at an extremely high speed. Due to the sheer volume, it won't just stay over the flag-bearing nation. It might not take a month for this fallout to reach our skies with the atmospheric circulation. By then, radiation will be everywhere, and no one will be able to operate on the surface. However, the food, water, and energy reserves in the underground works simply won't be enough for so many compatriots. 3 months later, all bases will enter a state of food shortage. And what awaits everyone is the collapse of order and a life of misery. Comrades, we are at a critical moment of survival. Therefore, I request and sincerely urge everyone to brainstorm and come up with measures to find a way out for our beloved people. The leader's eyes turned red as he recalled the story of exchanging children for food. He knew that if nothing was done, such tragedies would soon be repeated in the underground facilities. What should be done? This thought arose in everyone's mind simultaneously. Human strength can sometimes be limited. What could they possibly do in the face of such a sudden disaster? Even if everyone went out to work on production now, it would only be a drop in the bucket, a temporary fix that wouldn't last a lifetime. After a long while, someone finally spoke up. Leader, I have an idea. Old Zhao began. Having endured the hardships of the anti-Japanese war, how could these difficulties possibly scare these people? We need to organize a nationwide effort. Oh, Old Zhao, it seems we are on the same wavelength. Old Wang laughed heartily and stood up, slapping the table. You old coot, how do you plan to do that? Who said we're on the same page? You old man. Laughter echoed in the conference room, dispelling the previously heavy atmosphere. Is there a day when this old rascal will seek my advice? Old Wang chuckled, unable to hide his smugness, his head held high as if waiting for questions. Unfortunately, no one spoke up. After decades of friendship, who didn't know him? The silence was a way of not letting him show off. After maintaining the pose for 2 minutes, Old Wang could no longer hold it, given their ages. Cough, cough, since everyone is so eager, I will reluctantly share my thoughts. He managed to break the ice with a clever remark. Looking around and seeing that no one else was speaking, he continued, actually, food is not a problem. With so many of us, if we fully mobilize to cultivate the land and transport soil from the surface underground, using artificial light sources to replace sunlight, we can still obtain enough food. Everyone at the round table nodded in agreement with Old Wang's idea. However, this was not the real challenge. Everyone could think of that. The real difficulty lay in the water supply. Specifically, the water supply months from now, as every base would consider the water issue during construction. While underground water could be delivered to each room of the underground facility, 3 months later, nuclear fallout would cover the entire land, including the snow-capped mountains. The underground water sources would be completely contaminated if no measures were taken and they relied solely on natural environmental adjustments to eliminate the radiation. It could take 10,000 years. Of course, within a year, the people suffering from water shortages would have already perished. What Old Wang said is very accurate. An elder nodded in agreement. Xiao Zhang, immediately notify everyone to engage in self-rescue production. We cannot afford to delay even for a moment. Our comrades must lead by example and set a good example for the people. Yes. In the corner of the conference room, a young man with gold-rimmed glasses stood up. He nodded vigorously and quickly walked toward the door. The elderly man turned his head to look at the pleased Wang and continued speaking. Wang, how do we solve the water source issue? Such a large area of planting requires a massive amount of water resources. Don't we have underground water sources? That shouldn't be a problem, right? Old Wang, do you not understand nuclear fallout? Do you know what it entails? What is that? Drinking that stuff will get you tipsy, and it can't be used for crops. We need to think of a way to filter it out. Wang's face turned red. He had indeed forgotten about this aspect. So he straightened his neck, pretending he didn't understand. After speaking, he immediately sat down, refusing to say anything further. He was always aware of his limitations in unfamiliar fields. Ha ha. Laughter erupted again, and the atmosphere became relaxed. If you don't know, don't pretend. You old man. Zhao finally found an opportunity to tease him. However, Zhao wasn't entirely wrong. Water purification is indeed a good method, but the demand for materials is too high. First, we need to ensure drinking water. The second method is large-scale planting of sunflowers. The fallout will take a long time to reach the east, so we should plant sunflowers in advance. Sunflowers? What do you mean by that? Everyone's brows furrowed, pondering the connection between sunflowers and nuclear radiation. Old Zhao, don't talk nonsense. Ask Old Zhang for his opinion. If you don't understand, don't pretend to. Wang couldn't hold back any longer. This old Zhao is less reliable than I thought. Planting sunflowers? Did he drink too much last night? Old Wang, Zhao is right. Research shows that after a nuclear power plant leak in the northern region, there was a special case in the contaminated land where radiation levels dropped significantly, even comparable to normal land. That area was filled with sunflowers. Scientists found that sunflowers can absorb water elements from the soil, making sunflower cultivation a viable solution for nuclear contamination. Old Zhang stood up. He was the head of the scientific department, which gave a high level of credibility to the sunflower idea. Oh, I see. Then let's listen to Old Zhao. Haha, you old fellow, you're quite the fence-sitter. Zhao laughed heartily. With this diversion from the old man, I suddenly felt this wasn't such a difficult problem. Although we have a large population and high consumption, there are more advantages. From now on, we should focus on 3 things. First, we need to open up enough land to sustain all the people. Luckily, we have Old Yuan. Super rice will guarantee our food supply. Zhao's voice became a bit choked. Unfortunately, he has passed. Sigh. The elderly men in the conference room fell silent. Heaven envies the talented. Zhao said, he has left us, but we must look forward. The elderly man at the front broke the silence. He couldn't let sorrow affect him, as countless compatriots needed his protection. Sigh, I know. Elder Zhao nodded vigorously, quietly wiping the corners of his eyes, and adjusted his state of mind. The second priority is to establish a factory. We need to rebuild a complete industrial system underground. If we don't have enough filtering materials, we must be self-sufficient and produce enough radiation protection suits. This way, we can continue to retrieve equipment and constantly expand our production lines. Elder Wang's eyes lit up, and he said eagerly, stop dragging your feet. Let's start working on everything immediately. Hold your horses. There's a third point. Research. We must fully engage in research, focusing on nuclear pollution remediation. Only by addressing nuclear pollution can we have a chance to return home. Good. Cheers filled the conference room. They all said that having an elder at home is like having a treasure, of course, excluding Elder Wang. Comrades, does anyone have anything to add to Elder Zhao's suggestions? The elderly man sitting in the middle nodded continuously. Elder Zhao's 3 strategies were indeed good, and he believed that nuclear pollution could be managed in a few years. I have a suggestion. Oh, please, Elder Chun. I fear for the collapse of order. Right now, our military personnel are still somewhat fewer compared to the masses. If someone with ill intentions stirs up the crowd and causes conflict, and we are all scattered across various underground fortifications, I worry. Everyone was momentarily at a loss for words. In fact, this issue is quite solvable. It just requires military force. But who could dare to voice that? If anyone tries to disrupt our order, we cannot be lenient. We must act decisively when necessary. I propose we take a vote to enact a temporary decree. If anyone incites the crowd to riot, they will be dealt with severely. Everyone raised their hands to vote. In the chaotic times, strict measures must be enforced. This was the consensus of all. All right, let's document this and inform the public. Xiao Yu, I admire them. I even somewhat worship them. As Dongfang looked at the determined eyes around him, he sighed. This is our great nation, composed of people who are different from any other nation or ethnic group in the world. Chapter 290 Prelude. Don't you people often say that a person lives for their face, and a tree lives for its bark? How could they possibly implement such a temporary decree that could be misunderstood or even criticized? Xiao Yu was somewhat perplexed. She found it hard to accept because, in her memory, the people of the surrounding planets were selfish, doing everything to make their own lives better. Even the selection of the captain for the Fireseed spaceship was conducted only among their most outstanding individuals, while ordinary citizens had no chance of knowing about it and were completely wiped out. However, these elders from our nation are willing to sacrifice their most precious things for the masses, so Nova believes that even if it requires giving up their lives, the elders would certainly do so willingly. This contradicted her understanding, and she could not comprehend it. Xiao Yu, this is the excellent tradition of our people. The thoughts of the elders have long been elevated, and their hearts are filled with great love. This is what we often refer to as boundless love, like the water that is gentle and nurturing. To put it simply, their love is like water, vast like the sea, with no boundaries. To be honest, their hearts are already filled with their deep affection for this beloved country and nation, leaving no room for themselves. Therefore, it is quite normal for them to make such decisions. The Eastern individual explained with deep emotion, and even seemed to change their tone due to excitement. Oh, I understand now. I admire and respect these elders. Should we help them? Nova nodded repeatedly, her eyes full of admiration, and then she thought of lending a hand. No, helping a country in a personal capacity. No one would believe us, and we might even be seen as crazy. However, I will quietly provide some assistance through Yugo, so that our country can quickly eliminate nuclear pollution and return to life on the surface, hoping that the losses during this period will be minimal. The Eastern individuals shook their head. They trusted the elders, but what about their subordinates? What kind of people are they? They could not be trusted. Surely someone would say, it's just a rat, just get rid of it. But has anyone considered that our country is one built on human relationships? Eliminating one is indeed simple, but those people have families, friends, subordinates, and superiors. Some might suggest, then just take out their entire family. Fine, what about those family members' friends, colleagues, subordinates, and superiors? Should we just drop a giant annihilation bomb on our homeland and be done with it? These are our fellow countrymen. The Eastern individual found it hard to take such actions. Oh, well then, what about your employees? You can't just leave them underground, can you? What about the business you worked so hard to build? What to do? Nova's words reminded the Eastern individual, so after thinking for a moment, they spoke up. It's simple. I want to gather everyone together and take them to the base on the far side of the moon. No, that's not right. We should hold a meeting. I will explain my situation to everyone, and those willing to follow me can continue, while those who don't want to can have their memories partially erased and be sent back underground. The more the Eastern individuals spoke, the brighter their eyes became, until they were almost blinding. Falling behind means being beaten. This is an undeniable truth in any corner of the universe. Without strength, one can only release hydrogen bombs. Without strength, one can only hide underground. If it weren't for their intervention against the trial fleet from the Pegasus star, perhaps our homeland would have already become a slaughterhouse for another civilization. After experiencing the Pegasus incident, they had been under pressure, feeling a heavy burden, wanting to quickly elevate the overall technology level of our homeland, but constrained by the environment, they could only slow down and move forward step by step. This kind of life had already exhausted them. However, after experiencing this nuclear explosion event and reflecting on the decisiveness of the elders, the Eastern individual suddenly gained clarity. He felt as if his head had been struck, and after a brief moment of blankness, countless voices echoed in his mind, shouting, "Establish your own power. Establish your own power." As long as he grew strong, no one would dare to have any thoughts about him. If they wanted to help the Blue Star, they could. If not, they didn't have to. The corners of his mouth involuntarily curled into a smile. Xiao Yu, I want to establish my own power, or rather, our power. We will earn the respect of others with absolute strength. Great, great. I've been waiting for this day. I see you busy every day, without time to consider the matters of the Earthring star. I was so anxious and didn't dare to remind you. But now, you finally woke up. Nova clapped her hands, so excited that she bounced up. All right. Let us get ready. Dad, Mom, Grandma, you stay on the spaceship for a while. I have something to take care of, and I'll explain everything when I come back tonight. As soon as he opened his eyes, 3 pairs of eyes were fixed on him, all waiting for an explanation. Seeing this situation, he stood up from his seat and ran off. He could talk to his parents later. After all, they would have plenty of time together in the future. Hey, slow down a bit. Remember to bring Xiaoyu back with you. Mother Fong stood up and chided him. Got it. You all rest for a bit. Just follow the signs on the deck to the bedroom, and I'll be back soon. Dongfang disappeared at the hatch, but his voice lingered. This kid. Mom. Let us go rest for a while. We can talk when Fong comes back. You've been tired all day. All right, fine. Zhang Chong. Yuan Ge. Jingjie. Tian. Big brother. After a period of deep sleep, the employees of the Earth Ring Group gradually awakened. Being young, they quickly regained their senses after a brief moment of confusion. When in an unfamiliar environment, the first instinct is to observe their surroundings. They soon realized that the elders who had been responsible across the country were all in the same place. Yuan Ge, have we been kidnapped? How did I end up here after everything went dark? I was clearly on my way to the underground construction site. Wow, everyone is here. Are we all caught in one net? Zhang Hao rushed to Gao Yuan's side, his mouth immediately starting to chatter like a Gatling gun, speaking at lightning speed. Zhang Chong. Stop being a smart aleck. Kidnap my foot. A familiar voice echoed in his ear. Boss, where are you? Zhang Hao looked around but didn't see Dongfang, shouting loudly. Are you impersonating the boss? Come out quickly, or we'll make you regret it. Impersonate my foot. The hatch is already open. You and Yuan Ge lead everyone out. I'll be waiting for you in the square. As the light shone through, Dongfang's figure appeared beside Zhang Hao. He pointed to the hatch that was slowly opening, revealing a bright light. Boss, it's really you. I'll take everyone out right away. Zhang Hao panicked at this point. With such a realistic 3D image, he believed that no one could do it except for his boss. Everyone, did you hear that? Let's go? After Zhang Chong shouted, he grabbed Gao Yuan and rushed to the hatch, quickly organizing the order, as this was his forte. Chapter 291. Disembarkation. As Zhang Hao reached the door, he finally understood why Dongfang always said to go to the hatch. He had thought it was a slip of the tongue from his boss, but he didn't dare to remind him. Then, he saw a scene that he would remember for a lifetime. A spaceship. A massive spaceship, one that humanity could hardly imagine. It was parked in the sky above the moon, with a gigantic circular ring setting up a transparent passage. At the end of the passage was a platform covered by transparent glass. Below it, due to the distance, he couldn't see what was connected to the moon. On both sides of the transparent passage stood bodyguards dressed in black suits, wearing black sunglasses, and expressionlessly watching the hatch. He felt inexplicably that these bodyguards seemed somewhat familiar. Where on earth is this? Zhang Hao murmured to himself at the hatch. Haozi, what are you looking at so intently? Gao Yuan noticed Zhang Hao standing at the door like a statue, neither speaking nor moving outside. Then he was struck by the sight of his home planet after over 20 years. The blue planet hung in the sky like a bright pearl, capturing his full attention. However, he also noticed something unusual. The area where the flag of his home country was located was completely obscured, with only some dust-like objects swirling in the sky. Haozi, look over there, what is that? Oh my! Half of the blue planet is almost covered. Could it be an asteroid collision with the blue planet? Following Gao Yuan's pointing hand, Zhang Hao clearly saw a planet that was half blue and half earth yellow. The two stood there, bewildered at the hatch. You two, what are you doing? There will be plenty of time to look later. Hurry up and organize everyone to take the lift to the square. Dongfang's voice rang out again. Look at you two, so useless. Captain, you looked just like them back then. Nova, standing beside Dongfang, muttered quietly. What did you say? Xiaoyu. I've noticed you've become cheekier lately. It seems I need to take back your body. Dongfang, embarrassed and angry, reached out and pinched Nova's fair face. Ouch, ouch. Hey, be gentle. Hearing the teasing voice from the other side, Zhang Hao and Gao Yuan finally reacted. Oh, we'll get right on it. Zhang Hao, with a shameless grin, immediately turned around and shouted. Brothers and sisters, our blue planet has suffered an asteroid impact. To ensure everyone's safety, the chairman, who is my boss, has brought us to the moon. So when you see the blue planet and the moon later, please don't get too excited. Just walk straight along the corridor and wait on the platform at the end. All right, everyone, let's go. With a wave of his arm, Gao Yuan was the first to step out of the cabin, carefully stepping onto the transparent passage. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao stood at the door, continuously shouting, brothers and sisters, keep up, hurry up. The chairman is already waiting for us. His voice was broadcast through the speakers, reaching everyone's ears. Zhang Hao was shocked again because he didn't have a microphone in hand, and the people around him were also speaking, but their voices were not coming through the speakers. What kind of technology is this? Intelligent collection, active noise cancellation. Wow, am I dreaming? Is this really the moon? Is that a base down there? But why does the architectural style look so strange? Hey, if it weren't for the chairman being here, I would think we were abducted by aliens. Employees entering the corridor were chatting quietly as they walked. They looked to the left and right, slowing down their pace. even though Zhang Hao kept urging them to hurry. It still had little effect. Xiao Yu, open the flow-type transport. It's too slow otherwise. Dongfang naturally noticed the sluggish crowd. While he understood his colleagues and subordinates, who were experiencing space for the first time, he couldn't wait any longer. The longer they delayed, the harder it would be to erase human memories. Of course, it wasn't impossible, but forcibly erasing memories could cause irreversible brain damage, and in some cases, damage the central nervous system, leading to situations where those who had their memories erased occasionally lost bodily control and could not care for themselves. This was something Dongfang did not want to see. After all, these people were his colleagues and friends. Hey, why am I moving? Gao Yuan was also moving slowly. The scenery in space was no longer the focus of his attention. After a brief curiosity, he felt a bit anxious. What about his parents and his late wife? How were they doing? Would they be separated forever from now on? Sigh. The current situation was beyond his control. He took a deep breath and was about to step forward. Suddenly, he felt a jolt under his feet, and he began to move rapidly forward. The 300-meter-long corridor was traversed in just 1 minute, and he soon reached the end. Brother Yuan, over there is Zhang Hao. You take charge here. Keep everyone calm and orderly. Just have them stand and wait. Dongfang's holographic image appeared beside Gao Yuan, gently patting him on the shoulder. Auntie and uncle are on another spaceship. Don't worry, you'll see them soon. Seeing Gao Yuan's mouth move, Dongfang immediately understood. All employees' family members will come along, without exception. Great, great. This is wonderful. Gao Yuan's anxious heart finally settled down. He believes that Zhang Hao will surely jump up in joy upon hearing this. Although he hit it well, Gao Yuan still saw worry in his eyes. 1 hour later, the busy platform finally calmed down. All employees of the company were gathered in the square in front of the base. Captain, all 128 employees of the company are present. Nova quietly leaned over and whispered to Dongfang. Hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here with all my brothers and sisters. As he spoke, the deck beneath his feet slowly began to float until everyone could see it. Please take a seat. We need to hold a meeting for the entire company today. Dongfang stretched out his hand, and the deck beneath everyone changed, chairs appearing one by one. Everyone sat down in amazement. I'm sure everyone has many questions in their hearts right now, but don't worry. I'll answer them one by one, he continued. First of all, I can confirm that you are not dreaming. Everyone is here in reality, and I am indeed Dongfang himself, not some alien using technology to look like this. Boss, I can prove it. Zhang Hao stood up excitedly, just like when he first joined the company. Haha. Everyone laughed at Zhang Hao's words. At the same time, some doubts were temporarily alleviated, as they had never witnessed such an unbelievable event. Tens of thousands of people had been inexplicably brought here, and just thinking about it sent chills down their spines. At that moment, a familiar person came out to explain, and then another familiar person made a joke, causing the strange feeling to dissipate significantly. So they unconsciously laughed out loud. This is good. Dongfang chuckled lightly before continuing. Next, I want to tell everyone why we are here. Of course, this is also a well-known secret. The Flag Nation was defeated by the Lizard People. To ensure the survival of the remaining people, they launched a massive hydrogen bomb attack. Over 1,000 hydrogen bombs exploded within just 5 minutes. The Lizard People were eliminated. But the aftermath, or nuclear fallout, has now swept across half of the planet. And you can see it now. Dongfang pointed to the planet behind him. And everyone looked at the already devastated blue planet. This is just the beginning. In a month, this dust will circulate through the atmosphere and reach every corner of the planet. By then, all humans on the planet will be unable to move on the ground. With a gasp, everyone became restless, as they thought of their family, friends, and children. Boss, we have escaped, but my mother. Zhang Hao once again voiced the question that everyone was most concerned about. Rest assured, all the families of our employees, I mean their immediate relatives, have been properly protected. They are currently in a spaceship not far from us, in a state of sleep. So you really don't need to worry. Dongfang turned to Nova and nodded. Then a huge screen lit up in the sky. Mom, brother, wife, son, daughter. Although the screen was rotating quickly, they still saw their loved ones. However, at that moment, as Dongfang said, they were indeed sleeping soundly. All right, I believe everyone's mood has improved now. Let us get down to business, Dongfang said, spreading his hands. The image in the air disappeared. In the square, everyone smiled knowingly. I will answer the biggest question for everyone. The spaceship and the base beneath our feet. Just as Dongfang was about to mention his spaceship, Nova connected the communication. Captain, perhaps you should listen. A female friend calling herself Kite is quietly recording everything. A message then appeared before his eyes. Morse code. Yes, Captain. The Earth Ring Group has strength far beyond what we know. And they have established a secret base on the moon, along with spaceships. I will continue to lurk and gather enough intelligence. Kite, June 13th, 2023, at the lunar base. As Dongfang recalled, he gradually became fluent from his initial stuttering. You translated correctly, and I just reviewed all her records. It turns out this lady has leaked information multiple times. After saying this, Nova replayed the conversation between Kite and the man in white for Dongfang. What's wrong with the chairman? Why isn't he speaking? Yeah, is it inconvenient to talk? 5 minutes passed, and Dongfang still didn't say anything. Some couldn't help but whisper to each other. Don't rush, let us wait a bit. It's not urgent right now. Of course, some were more relaxed, and even comforted others. Just as everyone was discussing, Dongfang spoke again. Guys, the answers will have to wait a bit longer. Let us handle some internal matters first. Alright, boss, you say what goes. We're not in a hurry, Zhang Hao shouted again. Okay, then let us welcome this lady Kite to the stage. Dongfang pointed to a corner of the square where people were dressed in blue uniforms. The gathering place for the high-energy physics laboratory staff. Wu Xiangming noticed that the finger was pointing at him and suddenly stood up from his chair. Boss, are you talking about me? Didn't I say it's a lady? Are you trying to become one? Laughter erupted. Hey, I got excited, that lady named Kite. Hurry up, don't waste everyone's time. Wu Xiangming turned to point at his colleagues behind him. It's me. A crisp female voice rang out. And a beautiful girl with long, shiny black hair and a baseball cap stood up. Lu Xuanhe, you are Kite? What is Kite? Wu Xiangming frowned, feeling a bit confused. All right, Lao Wu, let her come up. After speaking, Dongfang pointed to the empty space beneath his feet. Hey, Wu Xiangming nodded, turned to the girl, and said, Lu Xuanhe, you can go to the chairman. Don't worry, if everything is fine, I will definitely plead for you with the chairman. No need. You can't help with that. Lu Xuanhe forced a smile, slightly leaned forward to bow to Wu Xiangming, then turned and walked towards the front. Now, let's welcome this beautiful lady, Miss Kite. P.S. earning my salary, living in my house, and actively leaking company information to others. Dongfang saw the spy walk up to him and cheerfully made the introduction. Yes, it's me. The company does treat everyone well, but I have no choice. Do whatever you want with me. I accept it all. All right, I'll retract your treatment then. You can return to Blue Star by yourself. Dongfang nodded at Nova. A small flying craft appeared above the square, a laser shot out, and Lu Xuanhe was sucked inside, the spaceship zooming away from the square. It then stopped outside the moon, and a blue figure was ejected. The large screen above the square displayed frame by frame the entire process of Lu Xuanhe rapidly losing her life. The square fell into a deathly silence, and no one dared to speak. In the extremely secure nation, they had never seen an S-person, and in front of so many people. Boss, Zhang Hao opened his mouth, then sat back down. He didn't dare to speak anymore. Guys, this woman almost took my life, so I have to retaliate. Don't have any concerns. Now put her aside. Let us continue our previous discussion about why I have a base on the moon. Because I acquired some scientific and technological reserves from relics on Blue Star. Their technology is far more advanced than ours. Moreover, the ships you're riding are all left behind by them. So, I really wasn't abducted by aliens. I've said everything I needed to say. And now I have a question for everyone. Do you want to continue following me? Not belonging to any country, but to ourselves, the Earth Ring Group. Of course, if you don't want to, I can send you back to Blue Star right now. Chapter 293. Questioning. Dongfang stopped, standing silently in midair, surveying the crowd with an exceptionally serious expression. Unlike developing projects or forming companies, this time the Earth Ring Group was to operate independently of the nation, becoming an organization not subject to control by anyone or any country. It was hard to predict whether people, raised with a strong sense of national pride, could accept such a change. Therefore, besides feeling a bit relieved, Dongfang also felt a little nervous. He was worried that there might be a large number of colleagues opposing the separation from the nation and the establishment of their own power. Chairman, I have a question. A young man stood up in the crowd at the aerospace base. He was wearing a gray uniform and had short hair. It was even possible to see his scalp. He was a clean, young man, with looks above average. Go ahead and ask. Not just you, but all employees of the company can ask questions. However, we won't waste time on repetitive or similar inquiries. All right, you can ask now. Okay, since we are so powerful now, why can't we provide technology to the nation? This way, our country would become stronger, and people's lives would naturally improve. Moreover, we could return to our homeland to live. Our company could continue to operate. And you could earn more money. Wouldn't that be a win-win situation? As the young man spoke, all his information appeared in Dongfang's mind. Qin Xiaofeng, male, 24 years old, joined the aerospace subsidiary in 2023. He graduated from the aerospace design major at a university in the nation. However, he is somewhat special. He was a defense student, originally set to be assigned work by the nation, but due to family reasons, he couldn't serve in the military and had to seek employment on his own. Captain, someone like him has his heart with the nation, and perhaps there are many such individuals, so your response needs to be considered carefully. Nova's voice echoed. Your question is good, but have you considered my feelings? If I were to hand over the technology completely and unreservedly to the country, would they believe me? Yes. Perhaps many would. But as long as there is one person who does not believe, can I ensure my own safety after handing over the technology? If it were you, what would you do? What's the issue? As long as I can prove my innocence, it's fine. I might lose some freedom for a while. But for the country and the nation, I would be willing, the young man said firmly, his gaze incredibly resolute. Indeed, we are all nurtured by the nation. And we should give back, he continued. Many agreed with his words, which might have been their original thoughts, but were simply hesitant to voice them. Oh, that's what you think. I don't share that view. I have always been helping the nation. Why do we sell products to confidential units at cost price? Why did the nation overcome the challenges of aerospace engines in just 2 years? Why are the nation's chips no longer restricted? These are all visible to everyone, and there are many more that are not. I won't mention them here. You can discover them later. I just want to express one thing. Since it is about helping the nation, I will help in the way I choose. It's my property. I will give it if I want to, and I want tea if I don't. In fact, there is another important reason. Most of us are good people. But when there are many people, it is inevitable that there will be outliers. They take from our country, yet in the end become traitors. You must know this, right? I don't want to see my contributions to technology being used by certain countries to target my homeland. Is there any way you can prevent or guarantee that this technology won't be leaked? The response was a light laugh, with a hint of disdain in their eyes. This can be managed as long as our country does a good job in safeguarding. The individual lowered his head, his voice becoming hesitant and lacking the earlier assertiveness. All right. Does anyone else have questions? The speaker gestured for the young man to sit down. Yes, we have technology that far surpasses that of the blue planet. Will you unify it? To be clear, will you take action against our homeland? This question came from a researcher in the high-energy physics lab, whose thoughts were quite simplistic. Rest assured, I promise we will never be the first to use force against our country. Of course, if we are attacked, we will not sit idly by. I believe everyone can understand this. However, regarding other countries, that's a different story. Any other questions? I have no more. Let us see if others do. He returned to his seat. I do. Does this mean we have established a new country? A sideways glance revealed the intent, though it was somewhat veiled in his wording. You could say that. We could be considered an independent nation. What do you think? Very good. I have many suggestions for you. Oh, it seems this person has other ideas. You're welcome to share at any time. And it would be best if you could compile your suggestions into a report for me. That would be more straightforward. You all know my email address. Just send it there along with your personal information. In the following time, more people stood up to ask questions about future life, children's education, elderly care, daily necessities, healthcare, and future development, touching on all aspects of life. The speaker patiently answered all questions, showing no sign of impatience. Because he understood that trust gained through deception cannot last long. It is better to clarify things from the beginning than to resolve issues later. When everyone thinks and works together, the organization or nation can achieve better development. Finally, after 5 hours, everyone stopped. They had asked all the questions they wanted to know. The speaker took the cup of water handed to him and drank deeply. Today, his water intake had already exceeded 2 liters. Yet he still felt thirsty, almost unable to speak. All right, everyone. Do you have any more questions? Everyone shook their heads in unison, tired from sitting for so long. Good. Then let me ask you all. Is anyone planning to leave? Don't worry. I will safely take you to the underground base of our nation. Unlike a kite that is sent off into space to fly freely. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed, and no one stood up or spoke. Boss, no one opposed. No one is leaving. We have unanimous approval. Zhang Hao jumped up again, looking around before he tilted his head towards the east and said, I'm starving. Let's wrap this up and eat. Ha ha ha. Another round of laughter ensued. This is a historic moment. The empire is officially established, and from here, it will venture beyond the solar system to become the ruler of all civilizations. I am very honored to participate in this conference. Memoirs of Zhang Hao. Guardian of the Empire Chapter 294, Establishment of the Nation. The meeting concluded successfully, and the East was very satisfied. Contrary to previous speculation, not a single person withdrew. Hence, he couldn't help but smile widely. Knowing that everyone must be hungry, our dining hall has prepared a sumptuous feast. Please head to the dining areas for your meal. Oh, and I need to inform everyone that due to the base's logistics, accommodations cannot currently support hundreds of thousands of people. So your families will temporarily be in a dormant state. We will bring them back once the base expands. Boss, how long will the expansion take? They won't starve. Will they? This question came from Zhang Chong, who was a bit worried about his elderly mother. It will take just 2 days. The expansion will be completed in 2 days, and everyone will be fine. Nova took over the conversation, having just noticed that the East's voice was a bit hoarse. Everyone stay put. The chairs you're sitting on will automatically take you to the dining hall entrance. Long live the boss. After Zhang Hao shouted, he squatted back down in his seat. He had been sitting for quite a while. However, given his current state, he preferred being sent to the dining hall rather than walking. After all, he speaks a lot. As soon as Zhang Hao finished speaking, the chairs in the square began to move quickly. Although the speed was fast, it was exceptionally smooth. Even Zhang Hao, squatting on the chair, felt no shaking. The dining hall indeed offered a rich variety of food, both Chinese and Western cuisine, along with a wide selection of beverages. Attention all personnel. Except for the storage and manufacturing areas, all other areas are accessible. Each person has their own private room. If you wish to go there, just speak to the nearby drone. It will take you to wherever you want to go. Just as everyone was enjoying their meal, Nova's pleasant voice came through the loudspeaker. Assistant Xiaoyu, where's the drone? Zhang Hao swallowed a piece of braised pork, glanced around without finding anything, and then asked. It will be here shortly. The doors of the dining hall opened, and oval-shaped drones flew in, hovering above each person's shoulder. Zhang Hao tried to shake his shoulder, and the drone moved in response. Assistant, does this device have a camera? I won't be live-streamed while I'm taking a shower, will I? Haha. The restaurant was suddenly filled with laughter. Don't worry. The device indeed has a built-in camera, but without your command, no one can access it. Also, no one will be watching you while you shower. Furthermore, this is a fully functional assistant provided by the base for everyone, an essential item for home, travel, study, and work. It doesn't need charging and is always online, except in cases of damage. It has many features waiting for everyone to discover. Lastly, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, all heads of subsidiaries are requested to gather in the conference room. No problem. Everyone replied in unison. I must say, it was a calm and comfortable night. For the Easterners, it was, and even more so for others. They had never slept in such a comfortable bed before, experiencing the same relaxation as the Easterners did for the first time. So no matter how tired everyone was the day before, they all woke up promptly at 6 o'clock the next morning. Dressing, washing up, going out, and eating. Except for dining, they hardly had to lift a finger. Although they had lived there for less than a day, everyone felt incredibly adapted and comfortable. Who wouldn't like the feeling of having everything done for them? For example, Zhang Hao was thoroughly enjoying himself, lying in a large bathtub with water flowing continuously around him. Like countless little hands gently tapping every inch of his skin with just the right amount of pressure. He felt all his fatigue wash away, and he became invigorated. So comfortable. After finishing his shower, he stood up from the bathtub, and a mechanical arm reached out from the floor, drying him off with a towel until he felt completely refreshed. When he reached the bathroom door, he was already fully dressed. This feels great. Zhang Hao chuckled as he left the room. Hey, good morning. Sun Jiamu from the Little Raindrop Game Studio also appeared at the same time. Hi, good morning, Lao Sun. Want to grab a bite? Let us go. The conference room was built in the center of the base, adjacent to the main control center. At 8 o'clock in the morning, when the Easterners arrived, the room was already filled with familiar faces. Gao Yuan, Zhang Hao, Yu Xinrui, Wang Chun, and the long-missed Meng Fu Deng Yuanji. He was sitting next to Zhang Hao, both laughing heartily, not even noticing the Easterners walking in. Is everyone here? The Easterners walked around the large round table and took a seat in the empty spot in the center. Yes, Captain, everyone has arrived early, Nova replied from beside him. Everyone. The Easterners raised their voice, and the conference room fell silent. I'm glad everyone could arrive on time. Today's meeting has only one purpose, to establish our own country. Boss, I wholeheartedly agree. Me too. Both hands. Zhang Hao spoke first, followed by Deng Yuanji. Everyone expressed their agreement. Chairman, I agree too, but I have a suggestion. As the saying goes, without rules, nothing can be accomplished. We need to have our own laws to govern all citizens of the empire, Gao Yuan said, putting down his raised hand. Yuan Gu is right. But we still have an urgent issue to address, Zhang Hao said, tapping the table with a proud expression. Oh, go ahead. Dongfang smiled and looked at him. Well, what should we name our country? Has anyone thought about it? How can we unite people without a name? How can we define our national identity? Zhang Hao said seriously, putting away his previous nonchalant demeanor. Dongfang nodded. He indeed had not considered this point. Good job. By Go, I second that. We definitely need to have a national title first. I've thought of one. Let's call it Dihuan Kingdom, since our company's name is also that, Deng Yuanji said eagerly. You're reckless with names. This will just let others know who we are. Zhang Chang retorted. I think we should call it Lunar Kingdom. After all, this is our main base. Wang Chen suggested. Indeed, that's reckless. It should be Galactic Kingdom. This is our territory. Yu Xinrui added. I also think Dihuan Kingdom is good. We are already familiar with it. Wu Xiaoming said. How about Han Kingdom? Let's restore the glory of our Huaxia nation. At that moment, the meeting room became chaotic, with everyone convinced their name was the best. However, when Dongfang heard the idea of restoring the glory of the Huaxia nation, a name popped into his mind. Speaking of restoring glory, I have an idea. Let's call it Huaxiao Empire. What do you think? I agree. Absolutely agree. They all responded enthusiastically. On June 16, 2023, the Huaxiao Empire was officially established. Chapter 295, 3 provinces and 6 ministries. The meeting concluded successfully, and the Huaxiao Empire was established in such a simple manner. In the following period, everyone became busy. First, they needed to further expand the base to accommodate the living space of families and children entering the base. Dongfang also didn't take on everything himself. He learned from the last incident when a spy managed to infiltrate the company unnoticed and got involved in the most confidential research projects, even sending information out without anyone noticing. Therefore, each person was equipped with a drone, serving as both an assistant and, well, something else that need not be mentioned. Dongfang knew that incidents like the kite event would definitely not happen again. With everyone's collective effort, the base transformed rapidly. In just a month, a large base twice the size of the previous one was completed. Although it took a bit longer than Dongfang promised, no one expressed dissatisfaction, as during the expansion, Dongfang only made the overall area division, leaving the specific construction entirely to the employees. This has filled the base with exotic charm, featuring ancient architecture from a certain nation. And of course, residences from other ethnic groups are not lacking either. In fact, several yurts were even discovered on the outskirts of the base. Haha, truly a big family of nations. On this day, Zhang Hao was standing outside his villa, looking with satisfaction at all the construction tasks that he had just directed the engineering robots to complete. This is a modern-style new villa, needless to say. This guy actually moved his villa from the base on the blue planet here. He nodded in satisfaction and turned to take another look at his original home. The blue planet. At this point, it could no longer be called the blue planet, as nuclear sediment had completely swept across it at an unusual speed. From Zhang Hao's vantage point, all he could see was an unsettling earthy yellow. Number 1. Please connect me to the Eastern Emperor. I have something to report. He took a long breath and spoke to the drone flying on his shoulder. Let me see. ISNT this our esteemed Chancellor Zhang Hao. A beam of light shot out from the front of the drone, and a 3D image of the East appeared in front of Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao's pupils constricted. Even though he had used the communication function many times, he still found it amazing. 2 people separated by thousands of meters could actually talk face to face with no delay at all. You jest, Eastern Emperor. Zhang Hao cupped his fists and bowed, not expecting that the imperial nation had restored its traditional ceremonial practices. They had merely retained the essence while discarding the dross, keeping only ancient rites like bowing and paying respects. Those practices of kneeling and worshipping were eliminated. I have been observing the blue planet these days. The speed of the sediment flow is too fast, and it has even spread globally. I am somewhat worried about our nation, although everyone is staying underground. What will happen to the food and water supply for so many people? Zhang Hao's eyes were already red as he spoke. After all, it was his motherland. And blood is thicker than water, impossible to sever. You little rascal, I didn't realize that you, usually so carefree, actually have such a strong sense of national pride. The Eastern figure said seriously, surprised that it was Zhang Hao, who seemed somewhat carefree, who first brought up this matter. So it was indeed somewhat unexpected for him. Don't worry, I have already made arrangements, so you don't need to fret. The people of our nation are living very well right now, and they don't have to worry about food and water. You underestimate the wisdom of our national leaders. Moreover, I have made special arrangements, and in case of an emergency, I will act immediately. You should focus on matters concerning our imperial nation. Let us first establish and perfect all the laws and systems, and then we will discuss further. Boss, rest assured, everyone is actively promoting this. The collection in our library is truly impressive. It can be said to have everything. Everyone is referencing the models from various dynasties for integration, and I believe results will come in no time. After finishing the discussion about the Blue Star, Zhang Hao returned to his carefree demeanor, completely unlike a high-ranking official. It said that one should treat those they haven't seen for 3 days with new respect. I'm looking forward to your results. After speaking, Dongfang disappeared. Zhang Hao then redialed Gao Yuan's communication line. Gao Zai, are you busy? Make it quick. Your future sister-in-law is moving in today. I'm busy. Gao Yuan replied, while directing engineering robots to rearrange furniture. Let's meet in a couple of days. The boss is starting to urge the progress on the legal code. Boss, you mean Dongwang? Got it. 2 days later then. Let's discuss first before submitting. All right, you get back to work. Speaking of ranks, we should clarify. The Huaxia Empire adopted the bureaucratic system from the historical Tang Empire. The ranks are divided into 9 grades, each of which is further divided into upper and lower tiers. Take Zhang Hao's position for example. The Minister of Personnel is the highest leader of the Ministry of Personnel, akin to the director of a certain national office. His rank is the upper 2nd grade, only a step away from the highest rank. Additionally, there are 3 external ranks. From high to low, they are the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd external ranks. The national management structure consists of 3 ministries and 6 departments. The 3 ministries are the Central Secretariat, the Ministry of Personnel, and the Ministry of Rights. The 6 departments include the Department of Rights, mainly responsible for drafting and announcing laws, The Department of Personnel, responsible for the selection and education of officials. The Department of Revenue, handling territory, land, household registration, salaries, and taxes. The Department of Military Affairs, self-explanatory. The Department of Justice, responsible for punishment regulations and legal judgments. And the Department of Works, mainly responsible for technology, health, equipment manufacturing, and all matters related to science and technology. With this, the initial framework of the empire has been established. Ding-ling-a-ling. Just as Dongfang ended the communication with Zhang Hao, the transparent bracelet on his arm rang. A familiar face appeared on the display. Zhao Jinyu. Dongfang silently murmured before answering the call. Brother Yu, what made you think to call me? Fonger, I'm so glad to hear